I would like to call the school board meeting for Tuesday, January 2nd, 2024, for the Des Moines Public Schools to order. Ms. Rios, could you please take the roll?
Yes. Ms. Alonso Diaz? Here. Ms. Caldwell Johnson?
Here.
Ms. Campos?
Here.
Mr. Dix?
Here.
Ms. Knox?
Here.
Ms. Martirano?
Here.
And Ms. Norris?
Here.
We have quorum.
The first item of business is approval of the agenda. May I have a motion and a second to approve the agenda?
Caldwell Johnson move approval.
Dix, second.
We have a motion by Caldwell Johnson and a second by Patrick Dix. Board members, please cast your votes.
Martirano, yes. Campos, yes.
There you go. The vote is approved 7-0. The next item on our agenda is our district recognition. Superintendent Roberts, would you please present?
Certainly, Madam Chair. Good evening, everyone. As the district's executive cabinet and I continue to bring forth at our board meetings celebrations and recognitions of the successes and accomplishments of our students and certainly our teachers and staff, tonight I have two examples that I am looking forward to sharing. I'm excited to get 2024 started on the right foot with two really tremendous recommendations of the great work of our high school students right here in Des Moines Public Schools. Over the past few months, 5 students have been spending a lot of time after school in a room at North High School working on a project that could literally be a part of exploring the final frontier. I've even heard stories of one of them logging a computer that is as big as a 65-inch screen TV so that they can all work together to get this project done. These students are known as Team Frostbite, and that is Frostbite with a Y. And they are competing in the National NASA App Development Challenge. The challenge requires teams to examine the South Pole region of the moon, use lunar terrain data, and display information for an astronaut's navigation and successful communication during the project. In fact, Team Frostbite, and we are incredibly proud of you all, is the only team representing the state of Iowa taking part in this highly technical, science-based competition. I know some of us had the good fortune of attending a presentation that the team gave at North High School a few weeks ago, but I am truly honored that they are here today along with their principal, Dr. Christopher Manise, and their teacher who reached out to make sure that we were there to support, Jessica Nunes. And they're able to be with us this evening to share more about their work. I would invite them to come up and share a little bit about their work. Let's welcome Team Frostbite.
Hi, I'd like to introduce myself first. My name is Sean Pacifique Mukiza. I'm a junior at North High School, Central Campus and Academy.
Hi, my name is Maslu Van. I'm a junior at Virtual Campus. I'm half Thai Dum and half Lao.
My name is Sujal Pokral, and I'm a junior at North High, Central Academy, and Central Campus. I'm Nepali.
My name is Jeffrey Allen, and I'm also a junior at North High, and I'm Italian and American, and African American, I mean.
Hello, my name is Ramas. I'm a sophomore at North. I'm Nepali.
So I would first start out by saying that this challenge was first introduced to us through Sujal, who was introduced through. Do you want to speak on?
We were first introduced to this challenge by Alejandra, Miss Alejandra. She's the By Degrees project manager at North. And when I first found out about this challenge, I immediately went over to Ms. Nunez and was like, would you be able to support us in this challenge? And she said yes. And as soon as I got the yes, I started recruiting, and this is the team we have before us.
So the challenge, which at first definitely was intimidating, essentially, I'll start off with the goal that NASA presented to us, which they have their Artemis missions, which the specific challenge was for ours was based on the Artemis 3 mission, which the purpose is to get the first woman and person of color to Moon, I apologize. But so what they do is this challenge is a way to get high schoolers and junior high schoolers to actively not only to involve themselves within STEM in this area and actively involve themselves within this mission, which is coming up very soon as future members of society and potential people who may actually be on these missions or working to help these missions at NASA or elsewhere. So the challenge has us, they give us certain region data of different places on the moon. And then they ask us to take these information, which essentially was just numbers, and turn that into something that we can display to essentially to help with some form of mission planning. Which after talking, because we talked to, it was a North alum who now works at NASA, and he basically explained that what NASA was giving us is obviously a lot easier because at that level it's very difficult. But what we were doing is essentially the same thing that he does as a physicist working at NASA and that other people in that field do. And it was a way to involve ourselves because we're taking a bunch of numbers and turning it into something that is useful for the future missions, and so forth.
Talk about challenges. QJS. Oh, yeah.
So, obviously, we had a lot of challenges trying to make this work, and one of our biggest challenges was displaying the visual data, and because we haven't done anything like this before, and it took us most of the time to try and visualize the data, and we did a lot of research on what apps to use and the coordinate system, which was spherical coordinates, which as we know, normal coordinates are in X, Y, and Z, but the coordinates that we were provided with, they were not in X, Y, Z. I can't remember exactly what the symbols were, but we first had problems trying to convert them into X, Y, Z coordinates as the coordinates were staying the same when we first made a program to convert them. Okay, and what is it? Then after we were getting somewhere. We did some more research. Then we found out a point cloud, which is basically just a cloud, a bunch of points, a cloud that makes up a bunch of points, and that creates a visualization. So we found a program called QGIS, and that program allowed us to visualize these coordinates, except that it started so it did look like the region on the moon, because we did have websites that we could use to to confirm if our data was correct, and it started folding on itself. So we tried for over a month to figure it out, and then we ended up just what did we do?
We ended up using Maya and Blender to visualize the data, and then we converted the data into a height map, which we imported into Unity, and we took that Unity file and imported it into Maya and Blender to smoothen it out. That's how we got the visualization from the data points to an actual surface that we could see.
Once we converted the data and displayed it and visualized the South Pole region of the moon, we then had to create code to take the rover from point A to point B using the A-star algorithm, which is a heuristic pathfinding algorithm that searches based off of weight and value. And after that, we created 10 checkpoints to ensure that the Earth was visible from where the rover was, to ensure laser communication was viable.
When we initially started creating the actual rover for our game, we struggled a lot with both conceptualizing and creating the actual thing on the computer. And it took some problem solving along with just simplifying the task at hand. And we came to a rover that we were satisfied with and felt that could achieve the job.
I want to point out that because this was a 10-week challenge, and starting out with this, we didn't have rarely or barely any information on what was to expect, and alongside with that, we spent over half of the time working on a part of this project that we ended up having to scratch anyways, and there was a lot of but in spite of that, it was the consistent not only support from Ms. Nunez, figuring out ways how to meet together, whether it was at North, whether we needed to find somewhere else, like going to the library downtown, at a coffee shop, finding ways to keep pushing at it, because we were going in with no information and finding ways to essentially to teach ourselves, to figure out what we need to do to move on forward throughout the project, because at certain points it definitely seems like it doesn't, the end of the road definitely seems very vague and blur, but with connections with others, community leaders and professionals in this field, and also guidance, that's really what helped us propel us forward to not only learn what it takes to be able to create something so valuable out of simple numbers that on the face of it isn't anything necessarily useful until you make use of it. So those are the biggest valuable skills that we took out of this project during those 10 weeks. So even though those over half of the time was spent on something we didn't end up using, it was a valuable lesson that we ended up learning once we talked with Dr. Dennis Gallagher, who works at NASA as a physicist, who mentioned how that's exactly what happens in this field, in this work field, and yeah. So
Thank you, Team Frostbite. Thank you.
And before we move on to the next speaker, I want to say something directly to this group. So when I drive to school board meetings, typically I think about my why. Why do I do this every day when I come to school board? And you were my why. So I'm so excited to see you here, and just really thrilled with the great work that you did. Really proud. Thanks.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Tonight is truly a big night for North High School and certainly for Des Moines Public Schools, because it continues to highlight that we, as the largest school system in the state of Iowa, are truly proud of the work that our students are doing in classrooms, really exemplifying outstanding scholarship and academic achievement because we have outstanding teachers and staff. And so here with us in the boardroom tonight, we also have Saji Dausao, who is a North High School senior and a student at Central Academy. Shortly before the winter break, he learned that through the Questbridge Scholarship Program, that he will receive a full ride to attend the prestigious Colorado College after graduation. The Questbridge program, ladies and gentlemen, works to connect the nation's brightest students from low-income background and to connect and align them with the top 50 colleges and universities across the country so that they can continue their education and pursue new and tremendous opportunities. We are excited for Saul and would like to invite him and Dr. Jessica Gorty, the director of Central Academy, to share a little bit more about this wonderful and amazing opportunity.
Thank you so much. Saw is, he's a humble guy, but he has so many wonderful attributes that have led him to this Questbridge Scholarship. And just so you know, the Questbridge Scholarship provides everything: room, board, fees, tuition, books, materials, and travel expenses. So it's a really big deal. I interviewed some of Saw's teachers to see what they thought of him, and they said things like, "Saw taught me the word sawtastic." They said, "He sees people. He is delightfully insightful. His contributions are fascinating. He's inquisitive and perceptive. He has strong opinions, but he listens and changes his perspective through discourse and discovery. Saw has an inquisitive mind, and he likes to know how and why things work. He is a classroom leader because he's always asking questions of himself, of his classmates, and his teachers. Saw has accomplished big goals by viewing every classroom activity and as a learning opportunity, constantly reflecting on his progress, celebrating his small wins along the way, and knowing sometimes the path to understanding is filled with twists and turns. He perseveres. He's very perseverant. He has taken, almost 11 or 12 AP classes in a variety of areas. He's got huge number of interests. I said, "What would you like to do when you go to college?" And he's like, "Well, I'm really interested in medicine, law, molecular biology, and political science." And I said, "Oh, great." And the reason that he has been so successful, because he'll tell you that he was not always this confident and outgoing, but he learned his tenacity from his parents who immigrated to the United States to flee an unending civil war. And with their unwavering support, he stepped out of his comfort zone and he asked questions. He met many wonderful people and he took advantages of a lot of opportunities. An example is he was in a class at North High in 10th grade on youth leadership. And he got connected with March for Our Lives and just became interested in it. And eventually he became a co-director of diversity, intersectionality, organization, and there's one more, equity? Yeah. So, and he's like, equity's the most, or he said that intersectionality was the most important because he has a real passion for mental health as well as ending gun violence. So this is Saji Do.
Hi guys. So I don't have too much to say, but it's just like I just want to get my point out that like having accessible information on how accessible education is for low income families is so important, because when looking at so many top 50 colleges, they meet 100% of demonstrated need. So that makes it so accessible for kids who make under $60,000 a year. Along with this, I just want to thank North High School and my central counselors and my peers, because it wouldn't have been possible without them, because of the understanding of so many teachers around me, I was able to do that. So it's just I'm so thankful that Des Moines Public Schools have such passionate teachers and so Mrs. Gogarty, by the way. I was not expecting this. She was just like, "Hey, Saw, let's go to the school board." And I was like, okay. But yeah, it's just so amazing. So I hope you guys from my experience, that you guys will continue like to help educate students in our school district about how accessible education is around like everything, and along with like different opportunities, because taking internships are so important. I was a Bank of America leader because it was like for North High School, like I got connected through that. Also TikTok, I saw it first on TikTok, guys. It was very like interesting because like I got an experience something that I've never experienced before. Because like I was selected as like one of 300 kids from the United States to do an internship with a local nonprofit, then like meet Bank of America executives and legislators in DC. And it was such an interesting experience because I took the action and took the opportunity and noticed the opportunity. And I just want to express how important it is to like take any opportunity that you get and just discuss and talk with your teachers to work things out. Yeah, sweet. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Saw and the members of Team Frostbite, you all are the exact reason why many of the adults who are sitting in this room today shop every single day with so much pride to be able to serve, teach, lead, and support each and every one of you. If you haven't already listened to the latest edition of the podcast that is fastly becoming the most watched and listened to education podcast in the land, that is the Become Here Project, Des Moines Public Schools' own podcast. I want to invite you to maybe tune in to listen to some great interviews where we interview students, teachers, and staff. Madam Chair, that concludes this evening's board recognitions.
Thank you. Ms. Alonso?
Thank you. Next on the agenda is the public forum, followed by the consent and regular agenda. We provide speakers at the forum an opportunity to address the board for up to 3 minutes regarding items that are not on the board agenda. We also allow any person the opportunity to speak to the board for up to 5 minutes following the presentation of an agenda item. If anyone wishes to speak during any portion of the business meeting, please email rosa.rios@dmschools.org. The same speaking protocols apply to all individuals who wish to address the board. Speakers will be called individually. As we ask, they state their name and address prior to providing comments. Students and minors do not have to provide their addresses. Guests of the board are encouraged to speak to matters relating to the programs, services, and operations of DMPS. Please remember that Iowa law prohibits us from discussing specific employees or their job performance. We ask all speakers to avoid references to personalities or character attacks, as those types of comments do not contribute to the purpose for which this public forum exists. The use of inappropriate language will not be tolerated, and individuals choosing to do so will be gavelled out of order and asked to excuse themselves from the premises or escorted out by district security. As a reminder to the board and public, the board will not engage in a discussion with public forum speakers, and it is our obligation to discuss only matters posted in the public agenda for the sake of transparency and opportunity afforded to all community stakeholders. Matters requiring attention will receive appropriate staff and/or board follow-up at a time after the meeting. Thank you for your participation. We appreciate your feedback and input. Ms. Rios, do we have any speakers for the public forum?
Yes, we do. We have a list of speakers. First up, I'd like to call Manya. You may approach the podium. Do you want me to call the rest of your team, and then they can just follow you, or individually?
You can do it individually. Hello, my name is Manya Pandey, and I am the founder and president of Love for Ed. I am also a student at the University of Iowa, and I was recently featured in the Des Moines Register's People to Watch in 2024. My team and I have a small presentation prepared for you all, so let's talk period poverty. So who are we? Love for Ed is a 501c3 nonprofit organization that works to fight period poverty in Iowa. I started this organization about 3.5 years ago when I was a sophomore in high school at Waukee High School, And I started this after seeing a post about women in prisons and the struggles that they go through as a result of not having enough menstrual products available to them. I also heard about stories from women in my life and the difficult experiences with menstruation that they experienced throughout their adolescent years in other countries, and as well as stories in the US as well. And so all of this led me to start Love for Ed, which is a nonprofit that works to fight period poverty. And our belief is feeling clean and having dignity on your period should not be a privilege only some can enjoy. So our mission is to fight period poverty in Iowa through service, advocacy, and awareness. So let's do some thinking. How many of you have been out and about and you have a bathroom emergency? You know what I'm talking about. You rush to the bathroom, you sit down. Now imagine you look over and you see there's no toilet paper. How do you feel? Annoyed? Embarrassed? Undignified maybe? I mean, come on, isn't it the business's responsibility to have toilet paper in the bathrooms? Everybody does it. It's a natural bodily process. Well, imagine for a second that you're responsible for carrying around your own toilet paper. Well, fret not. If you forget yours, there are coin-operated machines in every one of the bathrooms. Now, how many of you make sure you're always carrying around quarters? So why are we expecting our menstruating students to do so? So what is the issue on hand? The issue that we're trying to fight is period poverty. And this is described as the inadequate access to period products, education, and facilities to manage and feel safe and clean on your period. And up to 500 million people worldwide live in period poverty, with about 17 million of those people in the United States. So why should we care? Because this issue is not just in other countries. It's not just in institutions. It's in the US too. It's affecting our local communities, and it's affecting our schools and our students, and it affects their mental health, their physical health, and their education as well. And so now I'm going to pass it on to Varsha, who will be talking about the effects on students.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, Varsha.
Thank you, Manya. So I'll be talking a little bit about how period poverty is impacting our students right now. So these are a couple testimonials from two of the schools that we serve. Like you can see, Seidel High School nurse talks about how Love for Ed's donations have helped them a lot, especially because their budget was really tight this year. So us providing those products and those in their bathrooms has helped their students a lot. The Waukee High School counselor talks about how having these products in the bathrooms versus the nurse's office or the counselor's office makes it easier for students who need them to use them, especially when some students are not comfortable broadcasting it, you could say, or asking for it. You know, if they want to be more discreet about it, it's just easier to have it in the bathrooms for them. And these are some statistics found in a 2021 study called The State of the Period, and this was done by Thinks and Period. And they do a study every year, but these are just the statistics from 2021. As far as I know, they're still similar to right now, and they're still accurate for right now. So as you can see, they found that 1 in 5 teens struggle to afford period products or are not able to purchase at all. And this affects their education because 51% have missed at least part of a class or class period due to menstruation symptoms such as cramps. 84% have missed class time or know someone who has because they did not have access to period products. 61% wore a tampon or pad for more than 4 hours because they did not have enough access to period products. And this is a huge problem because this can lead to conditions like toxic shock syndrome or urinary tract infection, so that's not healthy for them. And the majority of students, 51%, feel like their school does not care about them if they do not provide free period products in their bathrooms. So these are just some examples of how students are being impacted by this lack of access to period products. And this is, you know, this can be anywhere. Even if you think that someone's not going through this, you'll find out that maybe they are. So I urge you to keep that in mind. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Shrey.
Hello, everyone. My name is Shrey Pandey, and I'm a student ambassador for Love for Ed at the Waukee Community School District. I'll be talking with you guys about what Love for Ed does. Love for Ed's mission is to fight period poverty through service, advocacy, and awareness. The first way we deal with period poverty is through service. We provide period products to places in need to reach those experiencing period poverty. The second way we combat period poverty is through advocacy. We have advocated at the state capitol for policy change to have free period product access in schools and other buildings. Our final strategy is awareness. We participate in community events and create informational posts to spread awareness. Here are some pictures of us at community events where we are educating the public and spreading the word about our organization. As I said earlier, I'm a student ambassador, and some of my responsibilities is working with the staff to keep up with the school's need for menstrual products. I also participate in period packing sessions, as well as recruiting other ambassadors. This year, we plan to organize some fundraising events for the organization. Apart from being a student ambassador, I'm also a member, which has different responsibilities from being a school ambassador. As a member, I attend many different events to spread awareness about period poverty. At those events, I help with setting up, running the booth, helping with some fun games, handing out prizes, and packing up after the event. As a boy, I obviously can't relate to the struggles of having a period, but that doesn't mean it's just a girl's issue. I believe that more boys should get more engaged in this issue. Now I'll hand it off to Aditi.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Aditi, you're next.
Good evening. My name is Aditi, and I'm an ambassador lead from Johnston. Today, I'll be informing you about Love for Red's accomplishments and how we are helping the Des Moines Public School District. Since we've started, we have served more than 12 schools, 5 school districts in Iowa, and 21 other organizations. We have donated more than 51,000 period products and served more than 3,000 periods. We have helped the Des Moines Public School District by donating period products to East High School and Findlay Elementary School. We were also present at the East High School Back to School Fair, where we donated period products and educated people on period poverty. And we are also planning on being there next year. So far, we have donated 3,500 period products. Des Moines Public School District is by far the largest school district we support, and we currently have more than 50 Des Moines Public Schools on our waiting list that we can't support due to a lack of funds and support. To bring this all together, students with periods face the risk of missing out on school and compromising their education. This is due to a lack of access to period products in school. By providing support to Love for Red, you can eliminate this risk for Des Moines Public School students. Thank you all for listening to us today. It is imperative for us to prioritize this over-stigmatized and under-discussed issue that is impacting students. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have Stacy Schmidt.
Hi, everyone. Stacy Schmidt. I live at 2418 37th Street in Des Moines, and I'm currently an instructional coach at Lincoln High School. Over the past few board meetings, you've heard several of my DMEA colleagues share the negative impact that the lack of competitive salaries in DMPS has had on our staffing and, consequently, our students. You've heard from veteran educators who've spent their entire career in DMPS compare their current salaries to what's available in neighboring districts. You've heard ESPs talk about the need for a living wage that recognizes the absolutely critical work they do every day in our buildings. You've heard educators early in their careers talk about why they came to DMPS, but why it's becoming difficult to stay here in the current economic climate. Tonight, I want to talk about educators like myself, people who've been in this profession for 20 years and have limited mobility opportunities due to the nature of the DMPS salary structure and educational hiring practices in general. With the current salary schedule for certified employees, our veteran educators at step 14 or higher go through 3 different periods where their salary does not increase at all because of our longevity system. For example, certified employees on steps 14 through 19 have the same salary. Likewise, employees on steps 20 through 26 have the same salary, and again for employees beyond step 27. For those 5+ year periods, when employees are in those step ranges, they receive no salary increase other than what is calculated from any base salary increase during negotiations. Approximately 30% of certified employees are past longevity, meaning they are above steps 13 or 14 in all lanes. While some have the option to move horizontally on the salary schedule by taking graduate courses, often at their own expense, thus negating any potential salary increase, many of our veteran educators on longevity steps have completed the coursework over their careers to earn the 45 credits beyond their MA or have earned doctorate degrees. As a result, their only salary increase from year to year is dependent upon the negotiated increase to the base salary generator. To put this in concrete terms, here's how this impacted my salary from last year to this. Last year, I was on step 17 with an MA plus 45 hours. This year on step 18 with the same credit hours, my gross salary increased by $701 for the year, which comes out to less than $60 each month. That's a less than 1% increase in my wages at a time when the Bureau of Labor Statistics has calculated that between July 2022 and 2023, the Consumer Price Index increased by 3.2%, which was on the heels of the massive 8.5% increase from 2021 to 22. As we enter this season of budget construction and negotiations, I strongly urge the board to direct the district to allocate above 3% for salary increases for educators. Likewise, I strongly urge the district in general to engage in the challenging work of looking at how to maximize our human capital to have the biggest impact directly on our students. We must prioritize positions that are directly student-facing. I realize that this will likely result in some difficult decisions and conversations, but we owe it to our students to ensure that we are prioritizing their direct experiences in our classrooms and buildings and not maintaining superfluous or redundant bureaucratic positions and practices. Classroom educators have consistently been asked to do more with less for over 10 years of lack of proper funding, while seeing the creation of new bureaucratic positions and increasing upper administration salaries. Our dedicated classroom professionals deserve better. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Rachel.
Hi. Hello, my name is Rachel Ng. I live at 829 16th Street here in Des Moines, and I'm so proud to be here as a DMPS parent as well as a DMPS teacher. I'm a classroom teacher at Roosevelt High School. I'm a Fulbright Scholar with postgraduate degrees from Dartmouth College and the University of Chicago. I found my home here teaching in Des Moines Public Schools due to this district's reputation for academic excellence and equity. As a teacher, I'm so happy that I work here. I work with the best staff, teachers, and leaders. It's an absolute privilege to work with great minds who inspire us to do our best every day. In your role of service on the board, we trust in your guidance to maintain and improve excellence, empathy, and connection with our community. I'm here today to bring to your attention a potentially perilous situation affecting the teachers under your care. On June 29th, 2016, the Des Moines Register reported that a, quote, bare bones survival budget, unquote, for a family of 4 living within the Des Moines Metro is $50,196 or $25 an hour. Adjusted for inflation, that, quote, bare bones survival budget in 2023 is $64,217.84, or around $31 an hour. That is a 27% inflation in just 7 years. DMPS teachers' starting wages are between $35,000 and $51,000, well below the, quote, bare bones survival budget threshold, let alone a thriving living wage. When we look at the comparable public service professions, we can see starting wages of, for example, a new graduate registered nurse, starting wages between $64,000 and $85,000, a starting police officer between $68,000 and $100,000, and this is all for Des Moines, a starting civil engineer between $61,000 and $80,000. All of these professions need comparable or even less post-secondary education than a licensed educational professional. Further, all of these comparable public service careers track and pay overtime. We all know that classroom teachers work well beyond paid contract hours. For example, it's a joy to me, and I'm so lucky to lead 2 after-school clubs, the Roosevelt Chess Club and the Roosevelt Fragrance Club, all of which are unpaid time every week. Any schoolroom teacher can tell you that we work anywhere from 10 to 15 hours per week outside our contract hours, planning, grading, etc. This unpaid overtime reduces our wages even further. When adjusted for my actual real working hours, including unpaid overtime, my real take-home salary ends up being around $16 to $18 per hour, depending on the week. I'm sure you've all heard of ACEs, right? Adverse childhood experiences or traumas. Well, at this level, teachers are starting to see ACEs develop in our own homes, as stress has risen considerably for us to care for and meet the needs of our own families. Increasing our base pay aligns with the educational goals of having calm, stable, caring, and healthy educators who are really ready to model and create safe spaces in which our students can achieve. I know that the board wants teachers to feel seen, heard, and supported. Raising our wages is critical to the success of our students, as well as retaining and attracting the absolute best educational professionals that we can in this district. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Rachel. Next up is Brittany Young.
Good evening. I am Britt Young. I live at 3012 Sapphire Circle in Ames, and I'm a 7th grade teacher at McCombs. I am new to the DMPS district, but I've spent 20 years in Iowa as an educator, most of my career in Waterloo, Iowa. I also am about to finish my doctorate degree for the same reasons that everyone has stated before, so I am but a third example of a highly qualified professional that is also a parent and trying to support their family within this district. I've had an interesting career trajectory that's also allowed me to work for the U.S. Department of Labor on appropriations as a professional grant writer during my summers and times off. And I also worked for the Cedar Valley Alliance in Waterloo as a workforce professional. So it has been my job to do talent acquisition for regional organizations and analyze salaries and do the exact work that we're discussing this evening. So although I have examples that I will share from my own personal experience to help also advocate along with my fellow professionals, I do want to hit that there is a market need for Des Moines as the largest school district in Iowa to look at the long-term repercussions of not being one of or the biggest leader in salaries for teachers in the state. You will not continue to save incredible talent like the 3 people you've heard just so far this evening, from being poached by other opportunities that often are available for people that are highly educated and can handle stressful and often unpredictable situations like what we do each day with the young people in our care. In fact, like most people who are 15 years out from retirement, I started to look at my earning potential with a son in college and start to explore, what are my other options out there? And although I'm extremely happy in my position at McCombs and I love working with students, I have done some research. In fact, one of my former principals from Waterloo is now a superintendent in Moline Coal Valley, a very similar school district to us, just across the border. And there at that school district, on the same step with the same education, I would make over $106,000. I think that entered this profession with the hopes that they would not have to take on the $80,000 burden of student loans. And we have to show them that there are ways that they can maximize their earning potential without fleeing the state. I think with our proximity to major institutions that are preparing future educators, we do have an economic opportunity at our disposal to be one of the leading employers that also offers a competitive and livable wage. Myself, I look at different things when I consider my work-life balance as a professional. I am willing to commute here from Ames because I believe in the culture of our school district. I believe this is a place where I can actively teach and I can do what is right for my students, which if you watch the news, you cannot do in every school district in Iowa. So I love that about Des Moines. We do what is right for our students on a daily basis. But I have already spent $1,200 of my own money and supplies for my own classroom. I have to use a jump drive from 2012 that I dug out from my early days of teaching in order to make a copy every morning and run down and do so. And we have a little bit of a pest issue at our school if you've not been out to McCombs. So the environment in which I work in is a highly qualified professional, although it's a minor thing in the hurdles I'm willing to take on each day are also a factor. And so when you factor in all of these issues, along with how I happily sub for my colleagues multiple times a week, so we can also use our other paid benefit of our compensation package, which is our time off, but not everyone else gets that benefit too. So if we're considering the fact that there are many teachers that are not able to use that part of their compensation package readily or without considerable stress to their work and home environments, we need to see if we can compensate in other areas, such as salary, to remain competitive. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Yes.
Nicole Meyer.
Good evening. I'm Nicole Meyer. I am a special education teacher at Park Avenue Elementary. This is my first year with Des Moines Public, and so far I've loved it. I'm a proud third-generation teacher. As the daughter of a medical professional and an educator, the impulse to contribute to the greater good was a birthright. However, when I was told as a teenager I had the natural giftings of a teacher, I laughed. My mom's salary was a pittance when compared to the time she spent in her classroom evenings and weekends. I was never going to teach. It wouldn't pay me nearly what I was worth. When I entered college, the pull of the profession was too strong to ignore. Facing the same choice my grandmothers and mother did, working for something beyond a paycheck, meant making financial sacrifices. My first position was at a small Catholic school with an annual income of $13,000. I was able to make it work because my parents had paid for my post-secondary education outright. I also lived with 4 other roommates, so bills, rent, etc. was split 5 ways. Across my career, I've been a 3rd grade teacher, a multi-grade teacher, and a special educator in a mild-moderate setting. My current position is at Park Avenue Elementary as a teacher of students with profound disabilities. Every day, I look forward to entering that building. Park Avenue is a place where I enjoy community, collaboration, and full support from my administrators. I fear my experience is the exception. It is an incredible thing to be a teacher. Unfortunately, what starts out as meaningful and challenging work can quickly turn unpleasant and unfulfilling as additional responsibilities are piled on. Unrealistic expectations can leave a teacher feeling like they are drowning. Burnout ensues, and another dedicated educator leaves the profession feeling they chose the wrong career. This past fall, I was privileged to teach my first post-secondary class at Des Moines Area Community College. The course was Foundations in Education. My 15 students brought their enthusiasm and excitement for the profession to class with them every week. Mid-semester, I addressed teacher burnout. I talked about the importance of setting boundaries in the profession and advocating for fair pay and benefits. None of my students were entering the field for a paycheck, but the reality is too many of them will leave the profession due to burnout. Some of the best moments of my life have happened in a classroom, some of the worst as well. I don't go in on weekends or take work home with me because someone tells me to or because I'm paid to. I put in above and beyond because my students and their progress mean everything to me. They are the reason I enter Park Avenue every day, determined to give 100%. Few teachers ever receive recognition or honor for what they do, apart from crayon drawings and heartfelt thank yous from their students. Our reward comes through the little moments of pure joy. For you to fairly compensate us for this important work demonstrates that you value and see us for the heroes that we are. It also means that you consider the cost of keeping excellent teachers on your payroll a small price to pay to benefit Des Moines Public Schools and its students. Thank you.
Thank you. Ann Cross?
Good evening, Board of Directors and Dr. Roberts. I'm Ann Cross, 1908 40th Place, Des Moines, 50310. I'm a high school science teacher at Central Academy, and this is my 17th year with the district. I have taught an estimated 4,000 students, DMPS students, including 2 current students that were on that frostbite team. I'm a leader in the union. As a leader in the union, I sit on the board of directors for the Iowa State Education Association, the Des Moines Education Association, and I'm the chair of the Government and Community Relations Committee for DMEA. I also serve on many district committees. I have 3 children that attend DMPS. Maggie is an 8th grader, and Ellie is a 7th grader, both at Merrill. John is a 2nd grader at Perkins. Maggie also takes some classes at Central Academy. All of my children have very different educational needs. I have a child that is an overachieving, people-pleasing hard worker, another that struggles with fluency in reading and was progress monitored all through elementary school, and yet another that is truly gifted in math and needs lots of extension to stay engaged. I continue to choose DMPS for myself and my children because of the incredible staff that I have the privilege to work with and that help my own children learn and grow every day. They go above and beyond to serve all students at all levels. We don't need fancy acronyms or new curriculum to know what good teaching looks like. We trust our educators as professionals to know our students and what they need. We need to do everything possible to hold on to these amazing humans that work with the most diverse classrooms in the state of Iowa. We are asking the board to take action to prioritize increasing educator salaries. We need you to take a hard look at the budget to make sure that money is available for these increases. We are in an educator shortage crisis. With so many options surrounding the metro and more jobs than applicants, we need to be as competitive as possible to recruit and retain the high-quality staff our students, our children, my children deserve. Let's make DMPS the place to be and not the place to flee. Thank you.
RJ Miller?
Good afternoon, board. My name is RJ Miller. I am a Des Moines resident, and today I'm here to talk about the good things that are going on within the Des Moines Public Schools. I would like to personally spotlight a lot of the students that formerly dropped out. They re-enrolled in school. A lot of our students that were not on track to graduate, they are now graduated. And I got the chance to be able to watch a lot of students develop into young leaders, from watching them in the town halls, watching them join student groups, watching students who are shy learn to develop their voice and advocate for students within their building. I've seen an explosion with teenage clubs such as Black Student Unions, the Latinos in Action. I've also got to see CORE and various other students get to advocate and do powerful work within their buildings. I'm also here to advocate for our community schools, because at one of the former youth town halls we had, it was mentioned that they want to talk about teacher diversity or educator diversity, and majority of our community school members are people of color, and they do serve students and families, and I think that it's very important for us to retain their positions. I feel like if we lose them, it's going to drastically affect our students of color, our poorer populations, and I don't know how the budget looks, but I think we need to do whatever it takes to retain those positions and to really fight for those individuals to be able to maintain their positions. You know, there's a couple people I can name. Chelsea Clay does an awesome job at King Elementary. We recently did an event with them at King Elementary. We brought the community in. We fed students. We got an opportunity to watch their band perform, and we were in community with them. We had various different faith-based organization, nonprofits. It was a beautiful thing. And community school people, they bring people like me that's a community partner within the school so we can work with individuals within these schools. You know, it's the Des Moines Public Schools' job to educate students. It's our job to be able to provide those wraparound resources or to be able to provide those additional resources that those students may need. So I just urge the board to do whatever means and methods that they can do to try to make sure that they maintain the community schools because they are definitely important. I want to shout out Tori Staples as well. Definitely want to spotlight Miss Tiffany Braxton. She's over here sitting with us too. She does a lot of awesome work over there at Hyatt Middle School. And again, these positions are very important, and I hope we don't lose them. And I sympathize with the teachers that came. I've been to various different school board meetings, and I've never seen that many teachers come and speak up on these issues. Typically, teachers don't want to talk about certain stuff because of fear of retaliation. So I definitely want to salute every teacher that's in this room today on your bravery and for sharing your stories with everybody in this room, sharing it with the board. I commend you guys. I hope you guys get the additional support systems that you need. At the former town hall, a lot of students were advocating for teachers to be able to have mental health resources and the support systems that they need, because at the end of the day, if you don't take care of your mental health and things like that, you're not going to be able to fully teach these kids. You know, you can't pour out of an empty cup. So I encourage all the teachers to continue to fight, continue to advocate, and definitely make sure that you're getting your self-care. Thank you.
Thank you, RJ. Adam Eggerman. Yep. Okay. Tiffany Braxton. Oh, I'm so sorry, Tiffany. I actually have you on consent agenda, so a couple more minutes. Let's call for speakers on the public forum. Okay, those are all the public forum speakers.
Thank you. We'll now move to the consent agenda. As a reminder to the board and public, the board will not engage in discussion or deliberation with a speaker regarding comments made to the agenda items. Discussion and deliberation will remain among board members at the board table with speakers' comments, informing the board's discussion, deliberation, and determinations as deemed necessary. Ms. Rios, do we have any speakers?
Yes, we do. Sorry about that. Tiffany Braxton, you may approach the podium. Thank you, Ms. Braxton. Sorry about that.
I'm a jokester, so that makes me more comfortable in this position. So we as an organization would love to partner with DMPS to further educate students and staff members about Juneteenth, and also in my dual role, being a 12-month employee at Des Moines Public Schools, it really means a lot for this opportunity. As I was reminded today when I read my emails, shout out to Dr. Roberts. I appreciate your emails. They are very touching. They are very poignant. But one quote that I saw, that beliefs are stronger when aligned with actions. So I believe making this point and considering this as a paid holiday will bring it into alignment to being and starting on that journey to continue to be the model of urban education. So thank you for your time and have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Ms. Braxton. Those are all the speakers.
Thank you. Before we turn to Ms. Caldwell-Johnson, who has the consent motion, I would like to make a request to pull and table item 3, which is guardrail 3, safe and welcome.
Guardrail 4.
Sorry, guardrail 4. And do we want to have any discussion about that at this point, Ms. Caldwell-Johnson?
I would suggest that we defer any action on the item until we've taken action on the consent items, and then that item would come back up for discussion and action.
Okay, so is there any discussion with regards to that? Otherwise, I'd like to make a motion that we pull that guardrail and table it. And just in the sake of transparency, Dr. Roberts and I had a conversation, and it's a very serious topic, and we think it warrants a conversation and a presentation, so we hope to be doing that in the next week or two.
So Jackie, I'm happy to move that the board approve the consent items, action item D3, in accordance with the recommended action for each item on the consent agenda, including bills previously authorized, certified, and approved for payment by the board secretary in the amount of $9,374,508.73, and procurement transactions in the amount of $674,678.90.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Dix, second.
Dick, second. So we have a motion by Ms. Caldwell-Johnson and a second by Dix. Is there any discussion, or does anyone have any questions?
Madam Chair, this is Kim. Just a point of order. There was already a motion on the table to pull an item. Does that need to be addressed before letting this other motion move forward? The agenda was approved as submitted.
Yeah, rookie mistake on my part, just so everybody knows. I should have actually done this during the agenda segment, and I did not. So I learned a lesson. Full transparency. We all learn and grow. Ms. Caldwell-Johnson, how would you like to handle this?
Yeah, I think if the board wants to approve the consent absent item D3, then that would be the prevailing action of the board. And then at that point, the item could then be taken up for consideration either tonight or at a later date.
Great. So I believe based on that, there is a motion that is complete absent that item on the table by Ms. Caldwell-Johnson, and we have a second by Dix. So with that, I think board members, please cast your votes.
Arturano, yes.
Campos, Johnson, yes.
The vote is approved 7-0. And thank you, everybody, for watching me learn to lead. So from there, we are going to move to public hearings. Next on the agenda are two public hearings. We have item E1, public hearing for East High Gymnasium HVAC upgrades. The public hearing will come to order. Is there anyone wishing to speak to item E1? If there are no speakers, then we will close the public hearing. Superintendent Roberts, would you please introduce the matter?
Certainly, Madam Chair. I recommend that the board review the proposed plans and specifications prepared by KCL Engineering for gymnasium HVAC upgrades at East High School, hold a public hearing, and approve the plans.
May I have a motion and a second to approve item E1?
Knox, so move.
A second?
Second from Campos.
Thank you. We have a motion by Knox and a second by Campos. Is there any discussion, or does anyone have any questions? Board members, please cast your votes.
Arturano, yes.
Campos, yes.
The vote is approved 7-0. We have item E2, public hearing for B9138 Jefferson Drainage Improvements. The public hearing will come to order. Is there anyone wishing to speak to item E2, excuse me? Hearing no one, I'll close the public hearing. Superintendent Roberts, will you introduce the matter?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I recommend that the board review the proposed plans and specifications prepared by Shive Hattery for drainage improvements at Jefferson Elementary, hold a public hearing, and approve the plans.
May I have a motion and a second to approve item E2?
Knox, so move.
Alonso, second.
We have a motion by Knox and a second by Alonso. Is there any discussion or does anyone have any questions? Board members, please cast your votes.
Caldwell Johnson, yes.
The vote is approved.
Campos, yes.
The vote is approved 7-0. Next on the agenda, we have our other items. The first item is F1, request to the School Budget Review Committee, otherwise known as the SBRC, for modified allowable growth for the special education administrative costs. Superintendent Roberts, would you please introduce the matter?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I recommend that the board approve the request for the School Board Review Committee for modified allowable growth in the amount of $2,402.77 for special education administrative costs associated with River Hills Consortium program for the fiscal year 2024.
May I have a motion and a second to accept the superintendent's recommendation?
Knox, so move.
Alonso, second.
We have a motion by Knox and a second by Alonso. Is there any discussion or does anyone have any questions? Board members, please cast your votes.
Martirano, yes. Caldwell Johnson, yes. Campos, yes.
The vote is approved 7-0. Next item is F2, request to the School Budget Review Committee for maximum funding for dropout prevention. Superintendent Roberts, would you please introduce the matter?
Certainly, Madam Chair. I recommend that the board approve the maximum request for modified supplemental amount for fiscal year 2024-2025 dropout prevention program for expenditures necessary to implement the 2024-2025 at-risk and dropout prevention program plans. The total budget proposal of $15,745,829 is comprised of $11,809,372 from modified supplemental amount and supplemental aid, and $3,936,457 as a required match from district general funds.
May I have a motion and a second to accept the superintendent's recommendation?
Alonso, so moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Alonso and a second by Ms. Caldwell-Johnson. Is there any discussion or does anyone have any questions? Board members, please cast your votes.
Martirano, yes. Caldwell Johnson, yes. Campos, yes.
The vote is approved 7-0. Next, we have our information-only items. First item is G1, Head Start Policy Committee meeting minutes for October 2023. The second item is the G2, Notice of Award of Competitive Quotes. And third item is G3, Board Members' Conflict of Interest Forms. Next on the agenda, we have items of privilege. I would like to ask if our board members would like to share anything.
I'd like to say that I'm really excited about the feedback that we are getting from community members, and I'm really inviting people to participate, to show up, to join us, and maybe help us out with our, ¿cómo se dice? Survey, our survey. People that cannot attend the meetings, in-person meetings, please, 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 we would love your feedback. We need your feedback. And I would be very happy to see you.
And Maria, if people want to get information about where the meetings are, they can find it at the DMPS website.
Correct.
Great, thank you. Other board members?
I just want to echo Maria's first off, Happy New Year, everyone and colleagues. I just want to echo the exciting month that we have ahead. We are gathering information to set our and review our board goals and guardrails. And if anyone watches any of our meetings, you know that is a lot of what we do, and it informs a lot of the direction that our school district moves in. So your voice has never been more critical. We are incredibly grateful to everyone who has participated so far, but we really want a good representation. So I just encourage everyone to please minimally complete the survey and also consider attending an event either in person or virtually. Also want to take a minute to invite you to attend the upcoming CLAT Coffee. Wasn't sure if that was on yours, but I'm taking it. January 13th, it's going to be at the Jesse Franklin Taylor Preschool from 9 to 10:15 a.m. If you haven't been to a CLAT Coffee, they are incredibly informative, energizing. It's just a great opportunity to connect with other parents and community members and legislators or lawmakers who care or are interested. So come use your voice and become an advocate of Des Moines Public Schools. We need you.
Thanks, Ms. Knox. I'll turn online. Does anybody from the Zoom, the virtual joining, would you like to say anything?
Yes, I could go real quick. I just want to say Happy New Year to everybody there, to the teachers and the staff of DMPS. I hope you guys are refreshed after your little break. And it makes my heart happy seeing that group of kids frostbite from North High School accomplishing, and just like what they talked about, it melted my heart. And I appreciate you kids and the teachers for supporting them. This is your work. As an educator, this is what you do, and you help these kids, and you can see the passion that these kids have. So I just want to thank our educators and our other staff that helped them out.
Thank you, Ms. Campos. Other online speakers?
Yes, I'd like to, first of all, thank all of the teachers that were in the audience this evening to speak. And I'm going to echo a comment that I made probably in December or maybe even November when we had a large group of speakers that came. I want to make sure that the messages that you're sharing with our district and with our board are also being shared with our governor and our legislature. So much of what we have the capacity and ability to do from a funding perspective is limited based on the amount of state supplemental aid that we are receiving from the state. As many of you already know, the amounts that we get from the state are underpacing the amounts that we typically are already allocating for percentage across the board increases for our staff. So as much as I appreciate all of your sentiments regarding the need for increased salaries, competitiveness, and the need for us to not only recruit and retain the best in our district, that message is lost on us if it's not heard by the state legislature, who really, at the end of the day, controls a large part of the allocation that we receive from the state in order to fund not only salaries, but also the programs and services of the district. So I want to make sure that the voices that we hear at our table are also the voices that are being shared at the state, and that you are loud and proud when you come to us, and equally loud and proud when you go to the state, because it's going to take a concerted effort from not only our district, but also those folks at the State House who really set the tone for what happens at our district in order for us to really be able to seriously consider significant changes in our salary and benefit system. So please advocate to our state legislative delegation as well, and our governor, who I believe is going to be making her State of the State address here very shortly, and hopefully will be prioritizing K-12 public education as part of her agenda.
Great. Thank you, Ms. Caldwell-Johnson. Ms. Martirano?
Nothing additional, thank you.
Great. I think the only thing I would say, we've talked about 2024 a lot. I am very excited about 2024. I will also say, and we've foreshadowed this with the board, there's a lot of work coming at us in January, February, and March. It's really exciting work. I've had a chance to meet with Dr. Roberts and start thinking through how we're going to calendar all of the things that need to take place. And so you will see several work sessions when there's not board meetings. You'll see board meetings that have work sessions after. We'll be listing the topic of the work sessions for those of you that are interested in knowing what we'll be talking about during that point. So before we turn it over to Dr. Roberts, I do want to flag that there are 3 work sessions that will take place after this. The first is going to be the community outreach and engagement update. The second will be the Council of Great City Schools introduction. And the third will be Facilities Master Plan update with Deputy Superintendent Matt Smith. So with that, Dr. Roberts, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It is clear to me, having sat here this evening at the board meeting, that we can think about this board meeting as being anchored in 2 themes. The first is around advocacy. The second is around excellence. Advocacy in the fact that we saw Mantra and her peers, as they represented their organization, Love for Red, really speaking to how they can partner with school systems, districts, and others to make sure that they're supporting a worthy cause. Advocacy, because we've heard from our DMPS teachers, many of whom continue to stand at the podium and share what their reality is, and to continue to advocate on behalf of themselves and their peers for increases in their compensation. Excellence, we saw Team Frostbite, we saw SAW, and those are students who are truly a representation of the amazing work happening in our classrooms across each of our schools. Earlier this week, I shared in our weekly communication to the school system a note that speaks to how I would like us to think about characterizing the school year 2024. While I would not proclaim to be a mathematician, I looked at 2024 and I used addition and I calculated 2 plus 0 is 2, plus 2 is 4, plus 2 is 8. And I reminded our DMPS colleagues that 8 is the number of new beginnings. Numerologist tells us that. What I'm hoping for, and I know that hope is not a strategy, but what I'm optimistic about is that our governor, who I truly believe values the education profession and values teachers, along with legislators, will make a decision that sets the state of Iowa apart from every other state in this country around how we are truly valuing teachers. I believe that in addition to the work that we are doing internally as a school system, we are dependent upon, in need of, and are truly relying on the right decisions to be made at the Capitol. I think we are poised to truly lead the way around this country in showing, supporting, and putting our money where our mouth is, so to speak, about how much we value teachers in pre-K-12 education. I'm excited about what is to come for the second semester here in Des Moines Public Schools. And as always, I want to close with a reminder about the Executive Cabinet's commitment to each of our employees, that we will continue to lead and serve from a place and an orientation of empathy and cultural responsivity. And we want to make sure that each and every day that you show up to our schools and other buildings to serve our students, that you truly feel seen, heard, and supported. And when you're not feeling that way, to let us know so that we can pivot and make those adjustments. Thank you, teachers. Thank you, staff. I'm excited about what is to come in this second semester of the school year.
Thank you, Dr. Roberts. Thank you for joining us this evening. We greatly appreciate all of you and the time that you took to be with us this evening. The meeting is adjourned at 6:50. And we will take a brief break and move into our work session to receive and discuss updates on the board listening sessions, Council of Great City Schools, and the Facilities Master Plan. 5-minute break, and then we'll come right back. Thank you. Okay, we are going to get started with the first work session. I just want to make sure we have Ms. Caldwell-Johnson, Ms. Martirano, and Ms. Campos. Look at that. And then I see Rodney is there as well. Are there any other people that are with us online? Okay, wonderful. So the first work session we've titled Community Engagement and Outreach. The goals are twofold. One is to receive an update from the committee, which is comprised of Maria, Jenna, and Patrick. And the second is to talk with Rodney to understand the what next. We've had some conversations about the recommendations. So we're looking for recommendations from once we receive the data, how are we going to move through as a board in partnership with the superintendent and his team to evolve from data to goals, guardrails, and ultimately adoption. So thought it would be good to foreshadow the process and ask questions to make sure that we can schedule it appropriately. So with that, Ms. Alonso, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you. Sorry, my popcorn was in the way here. Well, we have 8 sessions that we have completed. This week, and we were just looking at the spreadsheet a bit ago, we have managed to schedule 20 sessions so far, and for this week, I think we are covered. Everyone, thank you for helping out, particularly this week. I thought that it was going to be hard to get back, for everyone to get back and get back to work. We have a few more sessions that we have to schedule. We have, is it 3 more that we have? So potentially 23 sessions by the 25th. According to our communications office, we have less than 200 surveys that have been completed. We don't know the listening results yet from the sessions, but apparently we are low on those responses. Our committee met last week, and we agreed that we need to be more aggressive, that we need to be working harder on getting information out to families, to the community, and hopefully getting people to students, families, staff to engage. Phil is going to this week, let's see, he's planning a large internal push to district families and staff through email, through newsletter this week. And so hopefully that'll help us reach a lot more families yet. Let's see. This is just some older information because our information has been updated in terms of the number of sessions that we had to cover. I think, let's see, the notes for the listening sessions and the survey responses will start to be compiled on the 15th. So let's see, the recommendation. Our committee, when we talked, we agreed that we would want AJ or Great City Schools to, once we have that data, to give us their interpretation, hopefully by the 31st, unless we decide that we need a different date for that. The 31st. Mm-hmm. And then the board will be responsible for reviewing the data that they present and be ready to discuss it. obviously that will determine how or whether or not we adjust our goals.
Marie, can I just double check the timing again? Because, so we have the survey done on the
By the
15th. And we have sessions done by the 25th.
By the 25th.
And this is actually one of the unanswered questions that we have of Rodney. We have a work session on the 30th as opposed to the 31st. I think Tuesday is the 30th. So I just want to double check that's the date that you referenced. Did you say 31st or 30th?
I said 31st.
but it's
Okay,
the 30th,
so it's
yeah.
the 30th. And so at that point, we would receive from Council of Great City Schools, depending upon Rodney's feedback, the input and analysis.
Right.
And so that is something, Rodney, when we get to your section, that we're going to want to talk about and understand as well. So thank you. I just wanted to clarify that it was the 30th, not the 31st.
Yes. And then we hope to be able to review that information that Great City Schools presents to us at a work session in early February. And be done with our adjustments by mid-month, February. I think right now the push is to really sign up, look at the sessions that we have scheduled, and sign up. I think that we are doing fairly well, maybe through the next, I don't have the spreadsheet up. What does next week look like? But I think.
Next week is light. We need some help.
Well, we need a couple, one on the 8th and one on the 9th, and then otherwise.
I think that's our greatest concern, that, to not wait until the last minute and try to get signed up, please.
For board members.
For our board members, yes.
And then I know you talked about the sessions that you still are setting up. Can you just generalize and share with the board the types of sessions? Because I think it was based on looking at the feedback that had been received to date and determining where there might be gaps.
Yes. We have one pending from NAACP. We have one pending from Shelley Skooster around literacy, people that have been very passionate and active advocating for literacy. And then we have one more. What was the other one that we had?
The other one was the business community and trying to figure out how to combine that. Is it the partnership? Technology Association of Iowa has agreed to help us out with that, and maybe just combining that into a virtual session so that we can hear from the business community. The other one was some Pi 515 students would be the other one, DMPS students.
Yeah, and I also have an ask out to Hoover and Lincoln to ensure that all our high school students got a chance to participate as well.
Great. Do you need any help from the board in getting those meetings set up, from people on the phone or people here?
I think we have those covered. I think we divided up, just reaching out to the people that we needed to connect with, and that's been done. We're just kind of waiting to hear back. I feel, though, that we need more representation from families. I feel like we're getting professionals. I think we're getting some students, but we need to be able to reach families. And I know that when we started doing this work, we discussed the fact that we needed to be intentional about reaching the families, all populations that we have represented in our district. And I don't know that we're doing that. I think that we're doing that with professionals, but that's not giving us the larger contact, I think, the amount of contact that we can have with families. I think that we need families to get involved. We need to find a way to get people engaged, families engaged.
So one of the ideas we had, we actually went out with a proposal to try and get somebody to recruit people, so we felt like we had a cross-section, which at least would make sure we had some family voices. The proposals that came back were not at all appropriate. So one of the ideas we talked about, Maria, and I think we just need to get some feedback from Shashank about this, is how could we better work with a couple of the local nonprofits that we had discussed to incentivize families, or how could we incentivize through the BFLs and asking them to create something, but making sure that they're, fairly compensated as well. Because I think so far those are the two kind of best ideas, right? Working through existing community-based organizations that have access to families that are willing to do that for us, and the BFLs, and creating some type of incentive structure, even if it's just a couple of small events. I think, what was your idea when we had talked about that?
I feel that it's important to get families to participate, but that will happen if they know who's leading, who's organizing, and then also provide an incentive, like, I don't know, a gas card or something that would get people to be motivated to come.
I have a quick idea, a couple of them. So are we able to do a QR code with that survey on it? I know a couple parents were saying that it just takes forever just to go to the website and look down at, try to find it on there. Is there a way we could do a QR code or something that will go directly to that site? And then also, we have a lot of teachers and other community members, and we're lacking on parents. Is there any hardship of us going to, the games, the basketball games, or whatever sports events that the schools are having right now within this next couple weeks?
Yeah, those are two great ideas. On the QR code, we don't have one, and so I think that's a great reminder because we did it. Yeah, because we did it last time. So thank you.
Great. And I think, Anna, that we can attend those activities. I think that right now we definitely need to prioritize signing up for the sessions that we already have scheduled and be able to cover the sessions that we're about to schedule. And hopefully if people have time to attend those, I would say yes, absolutely.
My guess is they would even do it at the front, at the ticket desk. They could have them out there if we asked them to do that, so.
Right.
Ask somebody to make an announcement at halftime if somebody were at a game.
Right.
Just make an announcement at halftime asking people to do the survey.
Great. And I think continuing to target where Maria, Patrick, and Jenna are identifying we're light on survey respondents is the way to prioritize. Any questions or comments for the committee?
Just one more comment to add, and that is that I had a discussion with Phil today about a broader media push as well, and I think we could accomplish that even this week. He talked about sending a news release out tomorrow. I think that's got to be followed with a phone call. The idea here, the strategy would be to get on a couple of noon news programs. They always need somebody to interview, and especially this time of year, do the 2 or 3 minute interview about why this is important and what the process is, at least getting people to do the survey, if not come to an in-person session, that there are still a couple that people can attend, and then taking those clips and putting them on our social media, on the district's social media, and then just use that sort of multiplier effect to get the word out to folks to get this survey done by the 25th, or by the 15th.
By the 15th.
Sorry,
Yep.
by the 15th.
That's okay, great. No, thank you.
Was the survey sent out via School Connect or Snap Connect?
It's going to this
families?
week, Kim. I think they pushed it a different way, maybe in the newsletter, prior to this, but the goal was they did staff earlier today, I believe, and they're doing school community this week.
I almost feel that, I mean, getting that information out is good. I think, though, that it's sent out the same way that we send out, every communication that we have. And so I wonder how effective we will be, because my sense is that families receive that, they look at it, and they don't really understand or realize how important it might be unless it's someone that is consistently in contact or constantly in contact with the school. I guess in some of the sessions that we have facilitated, comments like, oh, well, we don't, nobody knows about this, or the school didn't know about it, or, parents don't know about it, families don't know about it. So how can we get around that? Because I think that we can push as much information as we want, but that's in text.
Yeah, maybe we could go through a checklist of like community school coordinators, principals, and just with Phil, maybe Patrick, I'll ask you, or whoever's working with Phil, to just go through to Kim, like Kim just said, when is it going? Just the double check to make sure all of the tactics, even the ones to Maria that are kind of getting a little local, community school coordinators, did it come from their principal? Those types of things. Do the BFLs have the information to send out? Is it translated? So if there's bandwidth assistance needed.
Yeah, and I think the survey, you can access the information and you can request, or you can click on it to have the material translated.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess my point is, reading is not everyone's priority. And we have to be able to talk to people. We have to be able to have someone say what it is that we're trying to do, because you can push out as much information. And to me, it could be just a text coming in, and if I really don't understand what it's about, unless my kid is in trouble, then I'm probably going to be like, well, they know what they're doing. They're going to take care of it. And we miss a lot of people that way. We have to find a different way to have people know what it is that we're doing, because we're attempting to have families understand that we're trying to do what's best for our students, but we keep sharing information the same way that we always have. Nothing's changed, with the exception that we're reaching out to the different communities that we have represented, but we have to do things differently. Like, can we have Patrick do a commercial or something and share with people, like tell people, like somebody speak to people on a platform that is more accessible, where people can hear and can, maybe if they want to, they can read, but I don't know. I'm excited, but it's also frustrating because I feel like we're running out of time, and I feel like we keep doing this the same way. And I think that we can do things differently.
Yeah. And I agree with you, Maria. I just think consistency is important. So at the very least, I think our baseline communication out needs to be the way in which we communicate with our families every day for that consistency for consistency purposes. So some families are used to getting information via Snap Connect or I don't know the new name of it. I'm sorry. But if we haven't even pushed it out via our mass communication processes yet, I don't think that we can look at what isn't going well yet either. I think that we need to, baseline start there and then look at various different ways that we can reach out. And I love your ideas of getting on the news and I think more of our actual outreach is happening in the month of January, where it wasn't happening in the month of December. It was more of our engagement versus outreach.
I think the other thing, and I don't want to speak for you, but what I hear you saying, and I share that frustration, is that it's not just the survey, it's not just we're trying to do this process in an equitable way and everybody receives it the same way and everybody answers the same questions, and that's a good idea. The problem is nobody knows why. What's the why of this? And the why of it is this guides almost all of what we do for the next 3 years. And and so I think that's the message. If it were me, and I think if the board were comfortable with it, could work with Phil tomorrow to come up with that messaging where we could tell that story a little bit more. That's why I think the general media ask is a better one, because then you can share that out just exactly as you were saying, Maria, in a commercial sort of format. Use social media, and I think that's, at this point, that's what we can do.
Yeah, I think that's good feedback. I think it's also, because we have identified this as a recurring issue, and I think we're trying strategies that the district uses as well, Dr. Roberts, and so it may be that we all go on a learning journey together to see how other schools might be doing some of their outreach more effectively and see if there's new ideas. That won't help us necessarily for this particular exercise. So I think we continue to innovate and try different things, and I think the media is a different angle, to try as well. So thank you for continuing to push on this and focus on it and make sure it's important, because it is really important.
I guess I see we know the importance of this. And we want to see families, we want families to understand the level of change that this could cause in our district. And for that, we need family input. But we're not explaining that. And we're not explaining that in a way that I think everyone can have access to it. And I feel like we talk about this, like this to me is really exciting. Like what's going on in the district, to be able to do this every 3-4 years is really exciting. The potential, right, that this has, and we don't talk about it like that. We talk about it like it's almost like, oh, it's work. It's gonna be, burdensome for families to show up and, can we give it some excitement? Can we be excited about what we're doing? But I don't know, I feel like the way we talk about it, we don't encourage people. We discourage people from participating.
Yeah, I think just to say, after Patrick and I spoke, I was actually thinking about the opportunity that is in front of us, because you've got the newly titled, Facilities Master Plan is now titled Education Reimagined. You've got the state of the schools in February, and we've got these listening sessions. And so I actually think there's a really great story to tell, along with a new superintendent and a very engaged board, just kind of turn it a little bit, right? And get out there and lay out what we've got happening, because there are opportunities for public input. And then, of course, the budget, which will also be another opportunity. So instead of also just being about this myopic thing, tell a bigger story about all of the exciting things that are in front of us in the next several months as well.
This is just me, and being new, I think your audience is going to have a tough time, in part because in explaining what you want us to explain, you don't have to, but it would help to get into the why. And the why is our governance. And explaining our governance is not a 30-second soundbite. And it's not an easy concept, I think, for families to understand. I think they think we come here, we make decisions, we're asked questions, we make decisions, and that's that. But their idea of what a school board does versus what we actually can do is is different. And I think that's part of the problem as well, is that they don't understand what a big deal this is and how important it is for the people sitting around this board table to have more guidance from our community, because that will help us, it'll help inform us. So I think that's one of the big hurdles here.
So are there any comments online, on the phone?
This is Rodney. Just if I could just comment for a couple of moments listening. I just want to kind of, first of all, thank you all for doing a great job, and I appreciate the discussion. Part of what I would encourage you to reemphasize in terms of trying to generate excitement and engagement with the community is, again, that as board members, you're going out to listen. So this is an opportunity for you to hear from the public, hear from the citizens and the stakeholders what it is that they value, what it is that they want for their children, for the children of Des Moines Public Schools. And I think part of what I'm hearing the struggle is like we're having this discussion right now. It's a public forum, it's a public discussion. We're talking about governance and the nitty-gritty work that will happen as the school board works with the superintendent to hash out the direction that you'll go in terms of your goals and guardrails. But the real value and the opportunity that you're providing right now is for the citizens to tell you what it is that they want for their children, what it is that they feel is that Des Moines Public Schools is doing with excellence. Where is it that there may be some challenges? And so by you engaging and listening and getting individuals to communicate that with you, then as we'll talk about a little bit later, you're then taking that information that you've heard from the public. You also will be taking information that you'll hear from the superintendent where there's some opportunities for leverage and some root cause analysis or root analysis that he and his team have done. And then through that input that you receive, you'll be able to go forward with looking at whatever direction you want to go with your goals and guardrails. And then that governance piece is something that you will continue to do as you then put implementation behind the goals and the guardrails that you set. So I guess what I'm just encouraging in this opportunity that you have, if you're going to be able to do commercials, if you're going to be able to get out there and recruit and share information, in the original script that we gave, that I provided to you, one of the pieces was around an announcement. And that just kind of looked at how you would be able to explain what you're doing and why you're doing it, and the key importance of you being able to hear from the community. And we know as elected officials that often that's what we hear from the public. They want to have the opportunity to share with you what it is that they think and what it is that they feel, so that they know that you understand their vision, you understand their values as you then go about the business of governing the district. So I guess in part, I'm trying to encourage you to keep up with what you're doing, but perhaps provide even more focus on why it is important for you to have these listening sessions, why it's important for the community to share with you what they feel in a candid way, and how that then allows you to then go about the business of setting these goals and doing your governance moving forward.
Great. Thanks, Rodney, for the encouragement. It is really important because it's hard work. And a special thank you to Maria and Patrick and Jenna. I wrote down a couple of action items just so we move to the next part of the meeting. I wrote down board members sign up for next week because it's still light. Patrick, you and I can talk through the media piece. Patrick will go through kind of the typical checklist of, connects and all the different emails and things to make sure that they took place, the community school coordinators, et cetera. And then, Maria, you and I can speak with Shashank and talk about any incentive strategies or other ways to invite families more aggressively into the conversation. Any other action items that were missed?
I would just like to mention that I know Patrick's comments around educating the public. At our meeting in July, when we first started discussing community engagement and outreach, we had a pretty lengthy discussion about whether or not we wanted to do kind of an educational venture out in the community first before we do the listening sessions. So I would invite you to listen to that meeting, Patrick, kind of how we got to where we decided that we were going to combine the education with the listening.
Yeah, and maybe just because you foreshadowed it, what I think I remember, but actually what I think I remember is that within the script that Rodney wrote that we're all using, there's a fair amount of education in that. So Ms. Martirano, is that, maybe just help me understand a little bit more. Are you saying we're doing it well or we're not?
I think that's staying on message. If I heard you right, Kim, I think it's stay on message that we all agreed on.
Got it. Yeah.
Well, yeah, it was an intentional choice to do it this way by the board back in July. So, but it was a conversation. It's not something that we decided lightly based on timing and information and just kind of how it would be done. But yes, I think that the information that we're getting out there is definitely a good start, and look forward to any additional ways that we can inform our public.
Great. Okay, thank you. So the next piece, which I think is really exciting, is, okay, we're going to have this wonderful data and information, which will be shared publicly and online on the DMPS website. What do we do with it? And so, you know, Rodney, we have a little bit of an understanding of the process. We've got some calendar dates that I've written down, but would love for you to coach us through your recommendation of how you would approach it from, we'll just say maybe from the 15th of January on. And maybe just talk us through data collection, timing, and, you know, we have this goal of the 30th, can we make it? So I'll stop there and maybe just ask you to outline the next steps.
All right. Just before I do that, I just want to remind the board members, as you were speaking in regards to the sessions that you have coming up next week, that there is the spreadsheet where individuals, board members can go in and sign up to either be board member 1 or board member 2.
That's what we're using. Yeah, we're using that. Yep.
I'm watching it. I just want to, you were speaking in terms of action items. I just want to reinforce that you need to have all the board members go in and do that. Otherwise, you're going to have the conversation around whether or not you can proceed with some of the meetings that you've been targeted without having at least the two board members present to perform the role. So I'll just re-emphasizing that. As far as the data collection and the scheduling, primarily I'm still operating off of the engagement outreach guide that I provided. I will need to make some adjustments so I can work with the committee and also work with others to make sure we can ensure that the dates that you have in mind align with the scheduling. For those of you that aren't aware, so AJ Crable, who's on the call, he is resuming his role as the lead coach and working through the Council of Great Cities work with you all overall in terms of student outcome focused governance. I'll continue to provide support on the board side, and Cindy will provide support on the staff side. As the information comes in, so I've already begun to look at the data and information that you captured from the sessions that you did over December. I also will need to get in sync with the administration and the team to get a sense of how your survey data will come in, so I can collect that. And then what I'm really going to provide to you is a analysis of all the information that has come forward. So it'll be a combination of the engagement and outreach sessions that you all are providing that input. It'll be a combination of the survey data, and then what our team will do is provide to you an overall analysis of what we've heard in terms of themes around goals, around vision, which will then be able to help guide you in terms of looking at what the community is saying, that it values what the community is saying, its vision is based upon the questions that we're asking both in the listening sessions as well as in the survey. And so then that information, which will be broken down with as much demographic information as possible that we can provide to you, will then help to serve as input to the board as you all consider your goals and guardrails and any adjustments that you'll decide to make. So, as far as I'm concerned right now, we'll still be primarily on schedule to have that analysis done by the end of January. I think originally we talked about the 26th. I know you just mentioned some slight adjustments with potential work session on the 30th. But the goal would be to have all that analysis available to you for review, and also have the opportunity for the superintendent and his team to view that as well. And then as part of our ongoing sessions and communications as we go through that data, that will then give you a sense of what we've identified as what the community has identified as far as what it values, what it thinks the opportunities are based upon the questions that we've asked. So then that data, along with the superintendent's analysis of where you are, how your students are performing right now, how the district is performing right now, together will then help guide you through our process as we will lead you through adopting any adjustments or any new goals and guardrails, so that by the end of February, I believe it is, into March, we then would have completed the board adopting goals and guardrails for the next few years.
Rodney? Okay,
Yes.
This is Jenna. I have a question. We got asked a couple times when we've been out in the community about the data. And I remember when we did the superintendent listening session, I feel like we received a summary, but we also had access to all the raw data. Is that the same in this case?
Yes, we'll provide you with the summary that I mentioned with the highlights, but we'll also provide you access to the raw data.
Thank you.
Rodney, I had a follow-up question to that. So just for planning purposes, the goal is that the input, the way it would come to us, ideally, you're looking to see if we could have that on the 30th and you could take us through it on the 30th. So that's an outstanding question that you'll get back to us on.
Correct.
I think it'd be really helpful. Jenna is avidly reading AJ's book. She can actually quote it in different places. And one of the things we met this weekend, and one of the things that she highlighted was the inputs needed to be able to have a really good conversation between board, superintendent, and staff. And one of the inputs was some data and work by the superintendent and his team. And Jenna, I don't know if you have the words exactly, but it was basically a deep dive of information. So you hear what the community is saying, but you've also got
analysis of current student performance across the full spectrum of knowledge and skills.
And so maybe if you could just highlight that or help the superintendent understand what exactly is that? What is that body of work that needs to be prepared and by when?
So we have the benefit of having the author on with us today, Mr. Crable. And so as I was mentioning, and I'll let him speak more to that, but as I was mentioning a moment ago, is that we will work with all of you as a team. And so part of that work involves AJ and also Cindy working with the superintendent and the team with being able to pull out that data from the superintendent's perspective of some of the high impact opportunities that will need to be a part of that discussion. And so I believe that is speaking to that, but I will call on Mr. Crable and give him the opportunity to add more from his perspective.
Happy to be supportive. What question can I be responsive to?
AJ, first of all, hi, it's Jenna. Hi. Really enjoying your book, 3/4 of the way through, and got to the point. Got to the point of really in goal setting. What the superintendent and his team are to bring to the table as far as to assist us and really help inform what we hear from the public. So was just kind of curious on how, if our staff felt prepared to have the analysis of current student performance across the full spectrum of knowledge and skills, and that we were working on that.
I appreciate this inquiry. So 3 things. One, there are 2 key pieces of information that the board uses for its goal setting. One of those is the current data about your students, and the other is the voice of your community. And so I've heard you all been talking about gathering the voice of your community, but yes, you can't really do goal setting without those 2 things. And so we'll, in the same way that we work with the board to support you as you're going out and listening for the voice of your community, we'd also work with the superintendent and his team and support them as they are conducting their analysis of the current reality for your students. In the same way that there are 2 different pieces, 2 sides of the coin for the board: community outreach work, where you are going out to the community, and community engagement work, where you invite the community to you. Similarly, the superintendent, there are 2 sides of the coin for him to work on. He needs to attend to what are the areas of highest need for your students, but he also needs to attend to what are the areas of highest leverage for your students. And so that highest need means just where are the students that we are not serving effectively right now, the serving of which is absolutely critical for their success. And highest leverage being who are the students we aren't serving as well right now, the serving of which would make a big difference for a larger group of students besides just that group of students. You know, so maybe we find that there's this one particular group of students that wherever they're successful, we see all of our students being successful, but wherever they're struggling, we see more of our students tend to struggle. Well, if that's a high leverage area, then it makes sense that the superintendent should reveal that to the board for your consideration when it comes to goal setting. So those are the things that that we will do to support you all with gathering the community's voice, and things we'll do to support the superintendent with gathering data about what's currently true for your students. Is that responsive to your inquiry?
Yep, great. And just I think for the superintendent to know that that's something we'll be sharing publicly as well. It's a 1 to 5 page document that's supposed to go on the website. So just that it's for us and then also for the public consumption.
That's correct. It is really, really important that when people ask you as board members, hey, where did you come up with these goals? Did you just invent them out of thin air? Did you get them off of Instagram? It's really important that the board is able to say, actually, here is what we heard from the community, and here's a 1 to 5 page document that summarizes what we heard. And here's what we learned about what's going on with our students, and here's a 1 to 5 page document about that. So that because what often really damages a community's willing to participate in these things is the sense that their voice was never heard, and the sense that they never got any insight into how their voice was used. And so it's important that the board have a summary document that can answer both of those questions for the community.
Great. And for those of you, Jenna has agreed, she'll be providing an optional reading assignment. She has gone through and marked a couple of really great places in AJ's book to read, especially around the high need, highest leverage, which I think is really interesting as you think about the goal, kind of thinking about goals and thinking about guardrails.
Being new to this, I just am going to ask a question that might be dumb, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Can we also have, is the data from the district only going to be around academic performance, or will some of that data, I think based on our current goals, it would be important to have some safety data, some data about our teachers and their safety in our schools as well, not just our students. And so what kind of statistics can we bring, what kind of data can we bring to the conversation? I guess I would open that up, and if I'm not overstepping there, I think it goes beyond academic data for me.
I just want to interject with my learning, AJ, if that's okay, to also quickly say to Patrick that we can have data, but just because data doesn't exist doesn't mean that we can't decide it's important and ask the superintendent to figure out how to identify data on something. So that was something else that I thought was really great to learn as well.
Okay.
So walking into this, though, just so I understand, Dr. Roberts is going to be given some guidance from a member of the Council of Great City Schools team with regards to what data, but it sounds like the board's hope is that at a minimum, the information that we already know is measured around goals and guardrails and reported on, and additional information probably around the Gallup and the other measurement instruments and other general academic information. Is that sufficient to record?
So let me be clear about this. It is definitely not limited to academic information that you're looking for an analysis from your superintendent. It is definitely limited to student outcome data. And so not all student outcome data is academic in nature. So for example, maybe he finds an area of opportunity is with career technical education. Well, I wouldn't describe that as an academic area, but it's still definitely an area of student outcomes. It's descriptive of what students know or are able to do. And so that is the constraint on what the superintendent would be trying to analyze. What is true about what our students know and are able to do? And often, to Patrick's point, that's often in an academic area, but that is not a limitation for this analysis. The analysis is around areas of highest need, highest leverage of student outcomes.
Thank you. And so I know we want to move to the overview from Ray Hart and team of Council of Great City Schools. But before we do that, because we have so many things that have to get calendared, I want to just say out loud what I think I'm understanding in terms of the goal and guardrail conversations that the board needs to have. And we have to also identify time to partner with the superintendent and staff. So on the February 6th meeting, the idea was that we draft potential long-term vision statement, goals, and guardrails. And I'm pulling this from the implementation calendar that was given to me. And then on the 20th, goals and guardrails were adopted. I'll be honest, the idea that that's very aggressive without having any type of retreat or longer planning session with Dr. Roberts and his staff. And so I think this is a great calendar. I just want to say out loud that we probably need to dedicate a Friday night or a Saturday because, we have to get these right and feel really good about them. So I don't know why there would be opposition to that, but I just wanted to foreshadow that and see if there's any reason why Rodney, you would disagree.
Okay, that for me. So, a couple of things. So I will, as I mentioned earlier, I'm going to go back and take that document that you're looking at and update it in consultation with AJ and the team on our end to make sure that we have those dates updated. In terms of any type of retreat or planning, if our involvement, which I assume would be a part of it, we just need to make sure we can get it on our calendar and that it makes sense. And, when we put together the initial scheduling, part of that was based upon the feedback that we heard from the board in terms of how aggressive that you wanted to be. So we responded to that with the schedule that you have. Adjustments can be made.
I think we're all in agreement with the aggressive schedule. It's just making sure that we have some intentional time with Dr. Roberts and his team and the board to just feel really good about the exercise.
Yeah, well, just keep in mind when we were talking earlier about the pieces of data that's going to come back to you. So there's the data that we talked about from the community outreach. There's the data analysis that we've talked about that the superintendent's going to bring forward. All that is happening together as a team. So the superintendent will have an opportunity to present that analysis. Our team will have the opportunity to present what we've done. We'll be able to have this all done in collaboration. It's not being done in isolation. There's something else I wanted to read. Oh, and the other thing that I just want to remind you is that, at least for me, having been able to watch you all and engage with you all since November, you have existing goals and guardrails, and you all are doing existing progress monitoring of those goals and guardrails. And so I have learned a lot of the superintendent's perspective and leverage points, because during those progress monitoring sessions, you all are asking questions of him and he is responding to you about where he is seeing where things are going well, where things are on track, where there's some needs are. So I would also encourage you to, continue to stay focused and have on your schedule your monitoring of your existing goals and guardrails, and also take the opportunity to go back and revisit part of that analysis and discussion that is taking place that the superintendent, I believe, and his team have already been trying to, in some instances, foreshadow or to give you real-time information on how things are going with those goals and guardrails that you have. You have the advantage that you're not starting from scratch. But to go back to your original question, I'll get back with AJ and our team to talk about dates, how we can be supportive based upon the feedback that we're hearing from you in terms of making sure that we build in enough time for the superintendent, for the board as a whole, to really get deep into the analysis that has to be done to ensure you have goals and guardrails that you all are fully committed to, and the community understands how their input is being respected in that process.
Great. And I think everybody is very comfortable with the aggressive. I don't want to speak for, I see Ned nodding here. I think, would love to hear from board colleagues on the phone. I think everybody's really comfortable with it, just anticipating the workload because there are other inputs as well happening in the next couple of months. Great.
We will be here in our coaching role. We will be helping you, and we will be facilitating all of that with the governance team as a whole.
Okay. I'm really excited. Ray, are you on the line?
So Ray is actually finishing up another meeting right now.
Okay.
He and I are
Okay, great.
actually both in multiple meetings. However, are we joined? I'll
tell you what
able to join us?
Yeah, and I'll just frame the request to remind board members why we asked for this. We know Council of Great City Schools as really primarily, for a majority of the board members, just student outcomes focused governance work. And yet we also know that we have a membership with this organization, and they boast a lot of urban districts across the state, across the country. And so this is just an opportunity to learn about what they do and what benefits and other things that we could be accessing as board members. So with that set up.
So, in the same way that I lead the school board supports for the council, Manish leads our legislative and policy supports for the council. And so we'll tag team this a little bit. To give it an overview, there are a wide range of operational supports that the council provides to superintendents and their teams. And so, for example, it's very normal for superintendents to call on the council to conduct different analyses of their systems and whatnot. But another huge thing that we also provide is the supports with navigating a lot of the federal laws and making sure that that our member districts are well represented as revenue opportunities and grants and other programmatic things taking place in DC are available to our members. So to best walk you through a lot of those types of services that are completely separate in addition to the governance work and also part of your membership. Manish, welcome.
Yeah, thanks, AJ, and thanks for having me here tonight. Sorry for the short-term sub for Ray Hart, but he does hope to join us in a few minutes. Like AJ said, I'm the Director of Legislative Services for the Council, and Ray asked me to provide an overview of the general services that we provide to member districts, and I can see up on the screen you have a copy of our recent member benefits guide to a review. I'm not going to do a dramatic reading of that document, but I'm happy to share some of the highlights so you can learn more about our overall work and how we can help Des Moines and how we help other urban school districts. So as an organization, the council's mission is the same as yours. We want to educate urban students to the highest academic standards and prepare them to contribute to the nation's democracy and to the global community. We want to help school districts like Des Moines as you lead, govern, and manage urban schools in a way that can inspire public confidence and build a committed and supportive urban school community that's focused on raising achievement. The council currently includes 78 member school districts. Our work is governed by a board of directors, which is composed of the superintendent and one board of education member from each member district. That makes the council the only national education organization constituted in that way, with both superintendent and board members having seats on our board of directors, as well as we're the only organization whose purpose and membership is solely urban. We have 2 large conferences each year, and the board of directors meets during each of those meetings to determine our direction and adopt policies for the organization. It also elects an executive committee that governs the organization when the full board is not in session. The board of directors has established 5 special task forces to guide the organization's work and address major issues facing the membership. These include a task force on achievement and professional development, one on leadership, governance, management, and finance, a bilingual and English learners task force, a task force focused on issues facing males of color, and about 5 years ago, we started our newest task force, which is a Black and Latina young women and girls task force. So as members of the council, you have expertise, or you have access to expertise both on the council staff and across our entire membership, which often helps districts get answers to questions they have about instruction, operations, research and accountability, policy and legislation, district leadership, and as I'm sure you know from AJ, questions about school governance. Member districts can also attend regular Zoom meetings that we hold for superintendents and school board representatives and school board chairs. But we also have monthly meetings for your chief academic officers, your chief financial officers, your COOs, plus more monthly meetings for all of the division heads like chiefs of schools, directors of curriculum and research, and your district leaders in areas like special education, English learners, transportation and facilities, food service directors, technology, safety and security. There's a long list. And in addition to these Zoom meetings, we actually have an opportunity for an in-person meeting once a year for all of these job alike groups. And that's in addition to our 2 big annual conferences that I mentioned. So we'll actually start with our first job alike meeting of 2024 next month with a meeting for HR directors from across the council membership, and that meeting is going to take place in Louisville. So all of these meetings are in addition to the regular updates and briefings and analyses that the council provides in a number of areas, either done for the membership at large or performed for specific districts whenever they ask. Like AJ said, I lead the council's legislative work, where our goal is to provide advocacy for you, for urban school districts, before all branches of the federal government. We try to help streamline regulations, target any additional dollars from the federal government to urban school districts each year. We also submit comments on proposals from Congress and federal agencies. We'll submit briefs to the Supreme Court if they're taking up a case affecting urban education. And we provide briefings to the districts on the status of federal funding, changes in regulations and waivers, and we'll summarize other, legislative, regulatory, or legal action at the federal level impacting member districts. In addition to our legislative work, the council also has an excellent research department that helps districts by conducting statistical analyses, research, and surveys on the conditions, successes, and challenges of urban schools, which can help inform your local policy and decision making. Some of the recent research topics they've taken up include educator recruitment and retention, teacher workforce diversity, and the impact of federal relief funds in member districts. Our research department also serves as a clearinghouse for research, data, and information on other issues concerning urban schools, including kind of regular research on why some districts might be seeing faster improvements than others. But as I mentioned at the outset, our overall mission is to improve student achievement, and we have a dedicated academic and instructional team that provides our achievement and professional development services. They assist districts by assessing the quality of the instructional program with a focus kind of on Tier 1 instruction. They can offer support to districts on curriculum initiatives. We've developed a framework for developing and implementing a high-quality district curriculum that districts can use. And our academic team also has experts in special education programs, English learners, and can provide support, materials, analyses, and tools to highlight and address the academic needs of diverse populations in urban schools. So the council staff is top-notch, and we are available to help whenever you need something, but I think our organization's greatest strength is the membership itself. Throughout the country, there are some states with multiple urban areas like Ohio or Texas or California, but many of the council's members are districts like Des Moines, in that you are the only big city in your state, and you have no true peers to network or collaborate with. Membership in the council gives your leadership and district staff access to counterparts in large urban districts across the country, districts that have similar demographics, similar challenges, and similar programs as you, and they can provide insight and lessons learned that is relevant to a district of your size more than other districts in your state can. And it's that expertise in our member district that I think fuels one of our most popular services, and that's our strategic support teams. Upon request from the superintendent, the council can provide in-depth assessments, technical assistance, and peer reviews to its members. For each strategic support team, the council assembles a group of experts, mainly with current or recently retired staff from other member school districts, along with council staff, and they conduct on-site and virtual interviews with your district. They can visit schools and classrooms if needed, and they review any relevant district documents or policies. And at the end of the review, the district receives a comprehensive report with findings and recommendations. And these reviews can be conducted in any number of areas. If you're looking to boost your district's curriculum and instruction, we can bring in a team to look at the areas that need strengthening, such as your reading and math programming. We can look at your instructional strategy and organization, or your interventions in low-performing schools. If you're looking to strengthen one of your management and operational areas, we've done teams to look at facilities management, technology and systems interoperability, transportation departments, and food services departments. These are just examples, and we're always happy to discuss any issues you are having in more detail and determine how and when we might be able to help. Like I said, these reviews are very popular, and they keep our staff and the district experts we use very busy. But once we receive a request from the superintendent for assistance, we'll follow up with an in-depth discussion so we can target the issues and areas to be reviewed and determine who might be best to participate from the field, from other school districts. And then we'll review calendars to see when we can get it scheduled. So given the number of requests and the availability of staff, we aren't always able to do these reviews immediately on demand, but we'll work with you to figure out the time frame that will work best. So finally, I think Ray also emailed, and I don't know if you have access to it there, a recent year-end document demonstrating some of the benefits of membership for Des Moines specifically in the most recent academic year. That document highlights the increased federal funding you receive due to the council's efforts to target federal grants on poverty, as well as some of the other opportunities, presentations, and council meetings that Des Moines staff participated in this past year. And we provide this kind of year-end summary every year to you. And it includes, like I said, all the Des Moines kind of activity in the council, as well as a general summary of benefits for the entire membership. So I think that's a good place to wrap up my summary and open it up if there are any questions or any further discussion. I'm sure there's plenty of things I've left out, and I know AJ may want to jump in with some of the work he's done. But just to reiterate, I think we are a member-driven organization, and if you need something, you just let us know, and we'll get on it. So thanks again, and happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Manish. I think before we go to questions, I just texted with Ms. Martirano, and she is our representative, and so I just asked if she had anything she wanted to be sure to add or share. So, Ms. Martirano?
Yeah, I think that Manish hit on really a lot of the high points, but the collaboration with other urban school districts, leaders, superintendents is really invaluable in my experience. And the work that Manish does at the Capitol and with the legislature as well is truly a powerhouse in what's possible for the students that attend and live in urban school districts. In addition to the research around student outcomes focused governance, of course, and I can turn that to AJ really because he is the governance, the head of governance for the council. So, but the outcomes that we see as council member districts, and one thing that Manish didn't speak on, but the data team does an an analysis of NAEP data every year in comparison to council districts to non-council districts. And it's really quite impressive, the gains that council districts make and the impact that the Council of the Great City Schools is having on the outcomes for students is really, the proof is in the data.
Great, thank you. Thank you for doing that and providing that insight. We just have a few minutes left, so I want to be sure to turn to questions to make sure we're asking questions if there are some. Looking to my board colleagues, do you have any questions at this point?
Just in listening to some of that, just some ideas come up for our coaching, some of the research that's been done and some of what we're seeing from peer level districts. What is a peer level district to the Des Moines district? Can someone tell us another city that looks like us and then help us compare and contrast some of the things that are done in those districts? That's a question I've had for some time, and would love it if we could get some of that information from our partners.
Yeah, that is a normal thing that we do, that when districts ask us for an analysis, we'll often identify usually 3 to 5 districts that are similar demographically, and then use that as a comparison case for some of the analysis. And so what you're describing is very normal. The only other 2 things that I would add to what Manish offered is, one, the strategic support teams, those tend to be very rigorous. And so I just always want to caution people against requesting those from us, only because they tend to be fairly brutal. I remember the first time I received one when I was on the board in Kansas City, and no punches are pulled. And so it's just worth it for people to know that those wind up being public documents. So before you ask for it, just understand what you're asking. The last thing that I would mention is that as a member, you do have the opportunity to have a seat on the board for the council. Right now, Kim is in that seat. What is probably the most common thing is for the board chair to serve in that. And so I would put that forward for your consideration as well.
Okay, other questions? Questions from the Zoom?
Hi, this is Terry. I don't have any at this time.
Thanks, Terry. So I think with that being said, that was a great overview for us. I think a great way for us to learn more about the benefits. I know I have a lot of questions, and so do others. And with transitions, maybe transition of superintendent, transition of some staff and board, we'll kind of regroup just to see where the touch points are and who's receiving the information, and just make sure that some of that great information is being shared widely, because it sounds really great.
Yeah, I think I'll just follow up now, sort of recognizing that our membership to Council of Great City Schools feels very focused on our governance and as a school board. And as you know, we are taking money from the budget to have a membership and wanting to make sure that it's maximized to its full benefit, and that there's also some cohesiveness, I think, beyond just what we get as a school board. But if there are, you know, it feels like this should benefit the entire district, not just the school board, if this is a membership that we're going to have. So I think that's sort of where I look at it, as trying to understand all of the facets, and do they make sense everywhere, and should they be? I'm not exactly sure. So thank you for having this overview and continuing the conversation.
Great. And then just one action item.
Can we share the document with you?
I was actually just going to say, Manish shared the document with Rosie. Rosie's going to share the document with all of the board and Dr. Roberts to make sure that we all have that information.
And I actually brought those documents back from the October conference. I believe that I brought them to the last school board meeting, so everyone should have a copy of the documents that have been shown thus far. And I will highlight that I do know that Shashank, I'm not sure if he's in the room, but Shashank does participate in all of the CEO monthly calls. He participates in the conference, as well as, Dr. Roberts participates in the superintendent calls, I believe. So there is participation happening outside of just the governance realm or the scope of the work that the council does.
Great. Any other questions? With that, thank you very much. Really appreciate the time that all of you took on Council of Great City Schools. I think I'm going to suggest we take a 5-minute break, truly a 5-minute break, and then Matt, if you want to come on up and we'll talk about Education Reimagined. So 5-minute break.
Hi, Ray. This is Kim. We are on a 5-minute break, and Manish stepped in for you, along with AJ.
Perfect, thank you. So they've already, Manisha and AJ have already finished?
They have.
They did a great job on your behalf.
Thank you very much, and I apologize. I wanted to join, but I'm in another school. I was in another school board meeting here as well, so I apologize.
One of the things that they didn't hit on, Ray, was we have our membership, but we also have our oh my goodness.
The fee, kind of the fee for service, government supports. Yes.
Thank you. So I don't know if Jackie's amenable to you speaking about that.
I would be happy to if you want me to take a few minutes to address it before you start the next part of the agenda.
Yeah, I think we have like 5 to 10 minutes max. So we would love to hear. So I'm going to, Matt, ask you to give us 10 more minutes, and I'll introduce, you can stay there. You don't have to go anywhere.
Okay.
Make yourself comfortable. So Ray Hart, who is the leader of Council for Great City Schools, is on. Kim shared with him what we've covered already, and I think there were just a few additional things that you were hoping to share. So Ray, I'm going to turn it over to you. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, and I'll actually do it in a minute if that is okay, so I won't take up much of your agenda. But really quickly, there are 2 types of supports that we provide, one of which is all of the supports that you get, and some of them are shared in this document that come as a part of the dues that you pay, and those dues support the work that we do in Congress on your behalf, advocating for additional financial funding and other things, the work we do with the Department of Education, and it also supports that we provide to a number of your staff around the district. So a number of those supports are all come as a part of the dues. There are also supports that we provide that are fee for service. Our strategic support teams, for example, and I think they may have mentioned that we provide strategic support teams upon request to the superintendent in various areas, technology and transportation and academics and other areas at the request of the superintendent. But those are an additional fee. We don't make any money off of those. We also provide governance support services to you that you all have availed yourselves of. What we actually charge you for those governance support services, though, is far less than what it actually costs us for the staff to support it. And so I actually do a great deal of fundraising. We're a 501c3, so I do a great deal of fundraising from grants and other resources to support and augment the gap between what you pay for those fee for services and what it actually costs us. So hopefully that helps in a nutshell answer that question.
Thank you. Any questions for Ray? Ray, thanks for your brevity. You've probably been at board meetings when the clock is ticking, so thank you for that. Really appreciate it.
I have.
Okay, so with that, we've got everybody back and we have everybody online as well. We're going to turn it over to Matt Smith, and this is a facility planning committee update. But I'll let you do the big reveal on how you're talking about this.
I'm wondering oh, there it goes. Kyle's got me. Okay, perfect. Well, good evening, board. Thanks for the opportunity to be able to provide you with an update on the Facility Planning Committee, which has received some branding from Phil and team and Adam Rower, so I'm super grateful for them. And so we are actually rebranding the facility planning group to be more about reimagining education and reinvigorating schools. That's the work of this particular committee. So the update tonight is to give you sort of a comprehensive understanding of what the committee is about, why we actually need this committee, why is it different, what are the things that this committee is going to engage in, what are the conversations and sort of recommendations and decisions we're going to be involved in. And then, of course, you know, who's on the committee and how this came to be. Sound good? And I was kind of hoping that we would just make this as much of a conversation, and so I'm looking for your feedback and your thoughts on things and questions as we move along through the slides, and so we can stop at any point that's helpful for you. So real quick, what the why, the what, the how, and the who. We'll talk a little bit about the subcommittees. The last couple of slides are specific. These are actual agendas that we're going to present on January 8th and January 9th to the subcommittee, so you get a firsthand view of what we're going to be talking about. And of course, then what's happened since we last met. So the document in front of you there it was created for two specific reasons, right? And you'll see the mission, the vision, and the strategy. This is specifically created for this committee to give them a North Star, if you will, a direction, and some anchor core elements about what we're going to have conversations about. When we talk about the mission or the vision, of establishing Des Moines as public schools as the premier learning destination for students, staff, and families, that is written as a vision for the committee. And so I'm certainly open and would love to have feedback on any wordsmithing that you think needs to take place. I think the conversation that was that you just had moments ago regarding goals and what we're hearing from families across your stakeholder engagement meetings might inform some wordsmithing of this particular document specifically. And so I was excited to hear about what's coming through and what opportunities exist. And so this is by no means a static document. It does have some fluidity to it and can certainly be, adjusted and edited. The mission, of course, really sort of speaks to what the primary focus of this committee actually represents and what we're here to do, and that is to deliver a transformative education that transcends boundaries, disrupts legacy thinking, and prepares students for their future. And so this is where I would stop and say this is not a committee of old. This is not about necessarily bricks and mortar. We will talk about bricks and mortar because we are a facility planning committee, but we are about reimagining education and reinvigorating schools. And so to limit our conversations to simply bricks and mortar would be a disservice and an injustice actually to our students, our staff, and our families. So we have a lot of opportunity in front of us to really rethink how we actually serve children and how we support staff and our families. The strategy is predicated on these four. Go ahead, please. Yes.
Based on that, you said feedback was okay.
Please, yes.
I love what you just said, and my only comment is that sometimes when people hear the word facility, they just automatically think bricks and mortar. And so in your mission, design a facility plan, I just wonder if there's a way to either expand that word or think about a way to explain it as something more broad, if that is indeed the goal, which it sounds like it is.
Yeah, that's great. That's good feedback. Thank you for that. I'm making some quick notes. Underneath the strategy subcategory there, you'll see four elements, sort of four core elements. I was getting sort of some feedback from some of my colleagues, and what the question came to me and said, hey, where did these come from? Which is actually the right question to be asked. And they specifically came from me, from conversations from other folks, and honestly, and some mentoring that I got from some parents and some community members who said, the question was, what separates Des Moines Public Schools from everybody else? And these were the four elements that were lifted up in those conversations. An immersive multicultural learning experience and global connections. We offer a multinational, multi-ethnic, multiracial, multicultural learning experience that really no other district can actually offer. That is a strength, and that is something that we need to lift up, highlight, and advance. Same thing goes for the access to world-class career technical education. We offer courses that most districts would dream of offering, but we don't tell that story always super well internally and externally, so there's real opportunity there. Same thing goes for access to rigorous academic suite, our advanced placements coursework, dual credit classes. I'm thinking about just data alone. We offer more than 30 advanced placement courses in Des Moines Public Schools, more than 30. Most school districts offer a handful. We offer more than 30. Dual credit is well over 50 that we offer. And so I'm just thinking about the students that were highlighted here tonight. And Sa, who's going to Colorado on a full ride. We have an opportunity to actually give students and families literally money in their pocket with school paid for through our advanced placement and dual credit offerings that we need to leverage and we need to preserve, number one, but number two, we also need to advance that work. And so that's why these elements and these core elements are lifted on there. They're by no means to suggest that these are new goals or anything like that. It's really what in conversation that really needs to be surfed quite a bit more. This is from a handful of conversations and in working with Dr. Roberts and meeting with other folks, how these were lifted up. One of the statements that was made to me that it just stuck with me. It said, "This is your leapfrog effect right here. When you put these combination of these 4 core elements, this is how you leapfrog other districts in making sure that students and families want to be in Des Moines Public Schools, and this is where they want to receive their education." So that really stuck with me, and I think there's more opportunity to continue to, again, wordsmith and edit that and make sure that we're all in agreement with those core elements. And I think what you're hearing from the community over these next month or two would really actually inform this work as well.
Can I fling one other thing out there? Take it or leave it. But something else that we heard in some of our listening sessions that stood out to me was also that like you can plug into so many things in Des Moines. Like I feel like you don't have to be an all-star at something to do a sport in high school or to do a new club or activity. And whether it's one of these 4, whether it's on paper or just something that's in the back of your head that I think does make us appealing for a lot of families is the ability for people to plug in easily, that they're welcome and that they have an opportunity to participate and kind of explore themselves in Des Moines as well.
That's noted. I appreciate that, Jenna. Thank you. Okay, so now we'll just hit a few slides that sort of articulate why. Like, why is this committee, why do we come together, what are we here for? And honestly, it's captured in these 5 particular bulleted points. We've got a forecasted enrollment loss. Our buildings are underutilized. We'll talk a little bit more about that. I think we're all abreast of the financial realities of our organization, and we've got necessary reinvestment in facilities that we actually need to make, whether that's through just mechanical and electrical, structural investments, but still also through programming. And of course, there's that opportunity for program evaluations. And so we can talk a lot about that as well. Council of Great City Schools, as you've heard, also offers some program evaluation and some audits that we can also engage in.
Matt, if you could, and I don't want to put you on the spot here, but if you could put a percentage or ballpark the necessary reinvestment in facilities that we know we're going to have to do, no choice, versus what the percentage is that this committee will talk about that is has an opportunity to be anything.
That's an interesting question, Patrick. And the reason why I say that is because the answer to your question is actually unknown to this point, right? So when we start talking about redrawn boundaries, potential school consolidations, facility consolidations, the answer changes based on the structural needs of those facilities, right? And so depends on which facilities we look to potentially consolidate would help answer that question, if that makes sense.
It does. So there are no, going into this work, there are no facilities identified or assets identified that are sort of non-negotiables. They're going to be there no matter what. And we are going to have to change the HVAC system in this building that we know is going to be there.
There are some of those things,
Okay.
right? And so I would use like this space that we're in right now, Central Campus, what we offer as a regional campus and a regional academy at Central Academy. These are not going anywhere. And so there are some investments that we need to make in these facilities. So to answer that question, yes.
Okay.
We do know some of those answers. One of the slides here depicts, and we can break that down a little bit more too, the facility conditions assessment that every facility is actually getting right now. We've got 29 of them done to date. And so they give us a lot of insight on that structural work, mechanical work that we're going to need.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Okay, what's the total?
Do you remember the total number that we're doing, Dave? Is it 70? Facility condition assessments.
It'd be every facility in the district. So
77 sites?
Yeah. Thank you.
Sure. So, and sticking with the why, I want to make sure I'm on the right slide here. This slide is just supposed to represent the out migration versus the in migration, right? And we refer to that as open enrollment in, open enrollment out. What you'll see down there in the bottom corner on these next several slides are just the main takeaways of these data points. It's important to note that these data points come from an enrollment analysis that our consultants with RSP conducted in FY23, so last school year. These are a few slides or a few pages of a 167 document that's full of data, that's rich of data. And so this is a small representation of that entire enrollment analysis. I want to point you to why is this committee here and what are we talking about is because we've had a tremendous loss in enrollment. When you combine the 3 school years that are articulated on this particular document with our current school year, we're looking at close to 3,000 students lost in enrollment, which is more than $21 million. And so that's one of the reasons why we are here and why this committee is needed and why we need to talk about the reinvestments in infrastructure as opposed to making sure that we invest our dollars in human capital programming and student services. Past enrollments, again, this is just a document, again, they're supposed to, the red is supposed to draw your eyes. And because there is a lot of red on this. And when you look at cohort data, we lose students year after year. They were here with us one year and we lose them the next year. Of course, one of the main takeaways is that you'll also see both on the previous slide as well as this one is the predominant loss of enrollment when we get hit hard is actually in that middle school transition when they move from 5th grade to 6th grade.
Can I ask a question about the data?
Sure.
Though in high school this year, we actually had more, like in the end, it was a positive net. Am I reading that right?
You are correct.
Is there, you'll dig into all that, I assume, to understand like what's the attractive factor?
Sure, yeah. Well, and we know that we open enroll more students in the last 2 years than we have in years past.
In high school?
In high school specifically. And a lot of that is to our home campuses for sure, but also to our Central Regional Academy and Central Campus.
So people are coming from like Urbandale to do Central.
That is correct.
And the inputs that you just talked about, when you look at the data, that's something that the committees are looking at. They're
Absolutely.
looking at the crosstabs and things like
We're looking
that
at,
of the
yes,
data.
actually, not only migrations in and out of the district, but migrations within district. School to school, where are they moving to and why do they would choose this school versus their home school, their school of residence. So all of that data is in that report. Absolutely. So why does this committee continue to come together? Because there's also working with the city, there's potential development. And so the average age of our buildings is nearly 80 years old. And when we were constructed, the neighborhoods and the city design didn't look like it does today. And so we need to modernize our school system and our resources and our facilities to match and map that of our city and the future development that's coming up. And so this is another reason why we have to look at, for example, boundaries, attendance boundaries. We've got areas of enrollment where we've lost enrollment that now are starting to creep up and have potential development moving in those specific spaces. And so we need to keep that on the forefront when we talk about strategically optimizing our facilities and making sure that we've got schools within vicinities of students where outcroppings of development are taking place. So this is just supposed to represent the fact that this is not a conversation within a committee of 85 that doesn't include working with our district manager, our city managers, and Polk County supervisors. We are working with all of these entities to make sure that we have the most up-to-date data, that we know what their DART routes are going to look like, that we know where the developments, again, are taking place, what the potential developments are. And so there's a lot of folks, even there's city managers that actually sit on this committee with us.
Hey, Matt, this is Terry.
Yes, ma'am.
And I had just a real quick question around maybe some of the more specific policy, district-wide policy implications of, boundary changes, school closures, those sorts of things. And it's specific to how we begin to view and think about our open enrollment policy juxtaposed against any specific recommendations that could come as a result of this work. So have you started down that path, or at some point, when will you begin to think much more specifically about those broader policy, district-wide policy changes that may need to be reviewed, debated, updated, et cetera, in the context of this larger work?
Yeah, that'll also start to take place here in this phase one, these months ahead of us. And with a specific eye on that being in this phase 2, when we take all of our sort of our findings, our data analysis, and our gatherings and begin to make some formalized recommendations in phase 2, we'll start to look at, all right, let's look at policy implications for this and how do we make sure that we can execute on these particular recommendations. The other thing I'll lift up, Terry, too, is that we've done some initial work around working with PFM, which are our financial advisors, around making sure that in course of this 2-year timeline that they are providing us with guidance on the board meetings that would need to take place, when they should take place, when we should look at presenting and representing potentially rebounding or redistricting our schools in terms of their attendance zones. So all of those implications of this work have been initiated with PFM, our financial advisors, who will guide this process for us.
Yeah, that's helpful. I think it's really important, sort of given all of the changes that have been made to open enrollment laws, et cetera, that we not bite off our nose to spite our face. I mean, there's some pretty significant implications in boundary changes and school closures. And there was a time when we had a bit more control over out-of-district open enrollment that we no longer have. Right. And especially now with school choice as an option, I think that the implications for how individuals make their decisions bear heavily on how we consider right-sizing our district, but also maintaining the critical mass needed to ensure sustainability of our district.
Yeah, I really appreciate your point, Terry, and I just noted that. We'll make sure that we look specifically at policy implications for us as an organization and how we might need to rewrite maybe those policies and those timelines.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. One of the other contributing factors and why this committee is coming together is there's just an overall decrease in the birth rates. And so in that of Des Moines proper, we need more folks living here to have more babies. That's the ask. Yes. This particular slide really sort of lifts up where the projections are. Again, based on historical trends, based on birth rates, based on current developments. RSP, our consultants in our enrollment analysis, worked with a number of local agencies to help pull this data together for us and gave us a projection. So again, in the next 5 years, we're projected to lose approximately 1,000 students. So beyond where we are now. After that fifth year, and we start looking at 6 years, there's a tick up. And so yes, we need to plan for 5 years, but we also need to make sure that if we are planning for years 6 through 10, if we don't want to Terry's point, cut our nose off to spite our face a little bit with some of our conversations and some of our recommendations, while we're also marketing our district and we're asking folks to come here and stay here, right? There's a real opportunity for us to continue to double down on some marketing strategies to increase our enrollment. And so we want to make sure that we account for that as well, too. One of the other reasons why we are here is the underutilization. And so what you see in this particular slide is representative of the fact that our elementary schools are working at about 66% of capacity, our middle school is at about 62%, and our high school is roughly at 86%. Given the loss of more than 400 students this year, those percentages are going to drop in terms of our functional capacity of our spaces. So what is a FAS? So we talked about the why we're here, why this committee is meeting. Again, it's committee number 85. And so the what? Again, this is simply a long-range planning process. Our job is to establish future facilities, to create financial stability, and ensure district resources are equitably distributed across our organization and across our city in service to students, staff, and families. There's a number of conversations. This is not an exhaustive list by any stretch of the imagination, but these are some of the things that we will talk about. There was a question asked, I think, previously before the break around program evaluation. Yes, there's also program evaluation that is also taking place as a part of this conversation with the committee. And so the how is really about this particular timeline. And so what you see represented here are phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3 of this particular work. Again, we are working with RSP consultants. And in phase 1, this is where we're collecting all of that necessary background information, pulling the research, and making sure that we spend quality time in data analysis and research analysis so that we know what best practices are. Examples of that are looking at, what are the grade configurations that we might want to talk about. Right now, currently, across our elementaries, we're K-5, with one exception. We don't have to be K-5. And what does the research say about that, right? We're a district that is heavily focused on early literacy. I can give you an example as to one of the committee members said, what does it look like to actually look at a K-3 school environment where we actually focus solely on early literacy, if you will, in that area where we're learning to read, right? We're developing the skills as new readers, and then we actually transition students into a 4, 5, 6 potential building where they are reading to learn as opposed to learning to read. And so there's lots of opportunity for us to look at that research. What are the best practices? Where is this working in other districts across the country? And so that's what this committee is actually committed to doing, pulling that research out and working with the Council of Great City Schools, working with the RAND Corporation, working with other entities that actually lift up this research, Hanlon Research Institute. This is where we're pulling a lot of our data from.
And Matt, that was actually one of my questions, which is how does innovation come into this and how does research? Because the committee members likely aren't expected to be subject matter experts on reimagining education, I think based on the composition. And so how are you introducing, where is that coming from? Who's responsible for gathering that?
Yeah, so we're relying a lot on our RSP consultants who do this work, that work with a lot of folks across the country, specifically in the Midwest, around redesigning school facility plans to meet the needs of their students and their families. So we rely on them quite a bit to bring in what they've learned and what they're experiencing and what they've researched already for other school districts. We're also working and leaning heavily towards our partners across the country, again, like the Council of Great City Schools, talking to them about school districts like Austin, Texas, where they've got some really innovative opportunities that are in front of them right now in terms of their school redesign and how they're actually moving forward with a facility plan that, again, could potentially include housing for staff in some of their remodeling and some of their remake. And so we're in conversations with a lot of our partners that we know, not only from the Council of Great City Schools, but just from these other connections, Wallace Foundation, and some of these other research institutes. Thank you. If you've got more, suggestions on research entities, let me know. We'll pull them up. So thank you for that. This is just a little bit deeper dive. Again, our first subcommittee meeting, we've only had one meeting up to this point with the committee. We've had lots of email exchanges and we've formalized the membership of the group. And our first subcommittee meeting is actually next week. It's a week from today. So it's actually 8th and 9th next week. And so what you have in front of you are just a series of dates. I think I need to make a correction on some of these actually, though, on some of the, on this particular slide. January 9th is not actually represented on here, so I think it needs to be. So I'll make sure I get that corrected for you. I just noticed it.
Hey, Matt, board members are able to come. Board members are able to come to those meetings since they are public meetings, correct?
They're not public meetings, Terry. They're superintendent meetings. However, I was talking with Jackie and Dr. Roberts about this. I'm happy to work with any of the board members that want to be involved in this. And I would love to do that, actually. That'd be great.
Terry, what we talked about, based on the fact that they're not public meetings, and the notion that this is a 2-year plan that will require significant kind of board investment and board knowledge to invest the community, that it might be helpful for Matt to have 2 board members that are really looking at the information and thinking through how best to present it to the board and understanding the board cadence. And so that's what we're kind of trying to map out and see what that would look like. It is not an active member on the committee. It is not designed for an individual board member to provide feedback as if they were on the committee. It was more thinking through this in partnership with Matt, because this will have several implications, both to the budget, but also for the board and potentially other searching for other additional revenue in the community.
So I would just offer that I'm not in favor of that, but you proceed however you'd like. The other thing that I might suggest is that any superintendent committee, as far as I am aware, is open to any board member to participate unless there's been a change in philosophy in that regard. And the only other thing that I would offer is that if there's ever a situation where there are more than 3 members, then it would need to be a public meeting.
Agreed.
I'll follow up with Dr. Roberts on how the composition got to be where it is.
Sure. So that sort of leads us to who's involved in the facility master plan. So, of course, there's some, myself and some district leaders. Dave Berger, Executive Director of Facilities and Operations, sitting behind me, is a key member of this and helps do a lot of the planning of this committee. Of course, we've got RSP Associates as our consultants, but I also wanted to lift up, before we talk a little bit about the committee themselves of the 85 members, the BBS architects. And so they're key in this work as well, because they are currently underway with their facility condition assessments. That, again, is providing significant data for us regarding the modernization of all of our facilities and what priority needs do we have in there, whether it's electrical, structural, mechanical. There's lots of opportunities for us to learn from these particular reports, and they're a little almost halfway done. So who's on our committee? There are 85 members of this committee, which is a large committee. And the recommendation from RSP consultants was 70 to 80. So I thought I would exceed expectations and go with 85. And so that's worked out really, really well. And as you can see, I tried to give you some quick stats about the particular committee. To the far right there, you'll see racial representation. That was the very first filter that we looked through when analyzing the committee to make sure that the racial representation of this committee reflected that of our student demographics and the families that we serve. In almost every case, we're right there on that percentage point. The next filter was to look at geographic representation to make sure that we've got representatives from all over the city and all over the district that are feeding our feeder patterns, if you will, right? So that's why you'll see East High School, North High School, Hoover, et cetera. We wanted to make sure that we've got folks that are plenty represented from those various areas to make sure that their voices and their representation of those voices in those geographical locations are actually on this committee. At that point in time, I looked at age range to make sure that we've got a good solid age range. We did end up having roughly 76% of our committee members fall between that 31 to 60, which is a pretty big gap. But we do have a good representation of age that includes students and, of course, the community members, parents. From there, it was important to have at least 50% of the committee be parents of students in Des Moines Public Schools. And so that was a significant data point. And so when I say that we went from here to there was some, once we established a list, then there had to be some movement, because once we started pulling out information all of a sudden our racial demographic would change. Had to go back and make sure that we were pulling representatives into the group to make sure that we maintained that racial demographic, that we maintained the geographical representation, that we maintained a good variation of age representation on there. So that's actually how we ended up with the committee that we have. There were a few folks that once we reached out the first time, they saw the time commitment, and just life happened. They could no longer continue, and so I appreciated them reaching out. And so we went back to the list of folks that we contacted and said, thank you for raising your hand, because we had well over 300 raise their hand, volunteer their time. And so we made sure that the individuals that replaced them were representative racially and geographically and age-wise, to the very best of our ability.
Great.
It's important to note that we've got, and I told the members of this in our one meeting that we had, students. We've got 10.5% of the committee is students. Honestly, that still doesn't feel like enough, just to be honest. So the number-wise, I think I went somewhere around 11, 12 students total. And so it's a good number. But in terms of getting more students involved in that, that'll be something that I will take, the role of and the responsibility for, to make sure that we continue to get students' voices in the room, especially the ones that spoke today. Actually, I think one of them actually is on the committee. So there we go. The last few slides are simply agendas. Like, this is actually what's about to get discussed. These were previewed, and these things are coming up. There's a lot of data points, a lot of data that we're going to have to sift through and sort of chunk for the committee. There's some homework that's going to be assigned and some pre-readings. And so I don't need to spend a ton of time on these because they're pretty much self-explanatory. But lastly, just, what have we done since we last met? We've had the one meeting. We've formalized membership. We've begun, we're not finished yet, with the data request and the compilation of all the best practices in the research. We've got a lot of it compiled, but we don't have all of it yet. There's still some of it's coming in. And I see my check marks fluctuated there. We had some tours on December 9th and December 16th. In total, both of those dates combined, we had about 23 committee members attend those. Some duplicates in that regard, because they enjoyed it so much the first time, they came back for the second week. And had a really good visit to sort of learn about what do we want to see and hear and think about when we walk into school spaces that we want our students, staff, and families to experience. And so in this particular situation, I wanted to lift up the difference between a school that was built in 1901 and one that was built in 2013. Mm-hmm. And we have everything in between in our district. And so it was a really, really fascinating 2 weekends of talking about the unique experiences that you get just from the age of a building, and the limitations and advantages that one or the other might offer in terms of the experience for our students, staff, and families. We've got more tours both in Des Moines Public Schools and outside of Des Moines Public Schools being scheduled. For example, February 17th, we're going out to Waukee to hit some of those schools out there. We've got good friends and partners out there, and they've built a number of schools. And so we want to learn from that. We want to learn a little bit why they built it the way they built it, what advantages are they seeing in that, and they're more than willing to help out.
Yeah, just sorry.
Yeah, but get it.
Very quickly, certainly want to build on the question that you posed earlier, Jackie, and that is, who's responsible? Who will we seek input from when it comes to truly reimagining education and reinvigorating our schools? And I think Matt's response was excellent, right? So in addition to the committee's recommendations, we are going to look to some of our national partners and certainly look at places and spaces where there are schools that are innovative in terms of how they're delivering their instructional practices. But of utmost importance, and this is for a much longer runway, because we're not going to come to the board with too many recommendations until probably about 2 years out. But we're going to look at a lot of the expertise we have here in the district. We want to enlist the voices of our teachers, some of our leaders around what does it mean for us to reimagine education and to reinvigorate how we are delivering on our instructional model. To that effect, I'll share with you, while we are anchoring so much about this futuristic Des Moines Public Schools in this long-term planning, I'll preview for the board that we're going to come to you all with some guidance around some of the partnerships that we've had with some school leaders. I know Dave has been a part of this, Matt and I. We've met with a number of school leaders who are excited about what is possible. And so actually beginning the fall of 24-25, you're going to see a snippet of what does that reimagining education looks like when we are disrupting the way we've delivered instruction and education in Des Moines Public Schools. I think based on what I know of all of you, you're going to be excited about it. I think so. And I think the community will be excited as well, because this specific sort of decision point is anchored in a tremendous amount of really, really compelling data. And I think it's going to move the needle in where we are, and it just bodes well for what is to come much later on down the road. Yeah.
Will that result?
Okay, I have a really quick question, and I have to assume that this has been taken into consideration. But when you talk about our aging infrastructure and buildings that are, 80 years old versus buildings that are 10 years old, is it envisioned as part of this discussion that we would also be marrying our saved dollars and plan to think about opportunities where, if there's a potential school closure or merger, that we would also be thinking about a new build at the same time? It just feels like there's an opportunity here for us to sort of merge not only the reimagining education and what our district-wide footprint looks like with the opportunity to invest our saved dollars in not just necessarily upgrading infrastructure, which is what we've done for the last 20 years, but rather reimagining that infrastructure into something new that gives us even a greater competitive edge when we begin to think through and talk about sort of the long-term view of our district.
Yeah, if I may, Dr. Roberts. Yeah, I think you're spot on, Terry. I think there's real opportunity for us to reduce square footage across our district with new builds in mind in certain locations where it makes sense geographically based on developments and where we need to prioritize leveraging these saved dollars, these shared saved dollars, if you will, to make sure that we are completely leaving no stone unturned when it comes to reimagining how we're serving our students. So 100% agree with you.
Yeah, I think the follow-on to that, too, is how we also reimagine the redeployment of any facilities that we may determine at some point we either need to or have to vacate, which I think has created some opportunities for us over the long term, but has also created some challenges for us in the long term as well. So it just feels like there is a much larger sort of connectivity and alignment that needs to be considered relative to what we are reimagining, what that looks like, how we invest saved dollars in the potential for new facilities, but then also what the redeployment and or reallocation of existing facilities looks like if in fact they're vacated. So it's a much more complex puzzle when you begin to think, all of the pieces put together.
Yes, ma'am, it surely is.
And I think with that, are there any questions? Any other questions? Maria?
No questions, just a comment. I'm excited about fall 24.
Yes, be excited.
And
Very excited.
I think, to Terry's point, that's why I think we're also happy that the frame has changed. And the frame is, around reimagining education, because this is a big deal. And so I'm excited. So thank you. And obviously, if there's other questions, people will follow up through Dr. Roberts.
Thanks, Matt and Dave. Great work. Thank you.
Yeah. So we went long today, but we covered a lot, which is great. And just to foreshadow that I think based on some budget information I got and a little bit more information that I'm going to get from Council of Great City Schools, then Maria, Dr. Roberts, and I are going to just map out the calendar for the next 3 months so we can give people a better sense, but it will look like we're meeting a lot. So I just want to remind everybody to keep their Tuesdays, please, and at this point, and we will follow up after tomorrow. Thank you. Thanks for devoting the time. Thanks, everybody online. Feel better. Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you guys. Have a good night.